Hey, how are you doing?
A beautiful day in paradise. You're just rocking and rolling, Life
It's
is good.
Canada Day today.
Is it really? I'm in Sandpoint, Idaho, so I'm pretty close to Canada, I feel like.
Oh, you should hop over the border and come celebrate.
What is Canada Day? Is it just a celebration to be Canadian?
Yeah, basically it's like the 4th of July, just Canadian version of the 4th of July.
Oh, that's very close to us. July 1st? That's crazy.
I know, yeah, yeah. So it's like, festivities throughout Canada, and I'm in the nation's capital. So like lots and lots would be going on right now at Parliament Hill, and there's like massive fireworks, there's lots of
Yeah.
shows. It's like a full day of festivities.
British Columbia, is that what it is?
Oh, well, the nation's capital is basically in Ottawa, Ontario.
Oh, got it. Okay, cool.
Ottawa, Ontario. So that's kind of like your Washington, D.C.
Wow, I've learned something new today. Thank you for that. I feel more Canadian than ever before, eh?
There you go. So now we just have to get you saying A at the end of your sentences.
Yeah, eh? That's good, eh?
There we go. You're a quick study.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I am a fast learner. It's true.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So are you in Idaho? Is that where you live, or you're just there right now?
No, I'm currently doing an emotional regulation repatterning program for childhood traumas. Uh,
Oh,
so I'm here expanding my mind and my heart to be the best version of myself because I look forward to being a really good father and husband and business owner and leader. And in order to do that, you have to really be healed or do the hard work that most aren't willing to do. So I am here pouring into myself, uh,
good.
creating
Is
that
it
version.
is it like inner child work? Is that what it is? Or
Similar.
similar?
I want to specify because I think when people think of inner child work, they think of like holding your inner child and being like, I'm here
Mhm.
with you. And you have like these moments where you're like, I love you. Um, this is more like um, behavioral conditioning and observing where your patterns were created from youth. So it's very different practice from what's out there currently that most people would assimilate to childhood work.
Right.
Um, and I needed something different because I've done the childhood work without any avail. I've done the talk therapy without any avail, and I just thought, man, where am I going to get something that is really going to isolate and understand that these things keep repeating in my life, and I don't know where their roots are. And someone gave me this young lady's name, um, like a top list of CEOs, that said, "Hey, this is the person here." Um, and in that person, I ended up reaching out to them, and they essentially like shifted my reality. I came out here, and the
Wow.
private's like $10,000 for the private for the month, and I didn't know what to expect. I had done the course at like $1,700 for, sorry, workout hands. I got like you get like the pads or
Calluses?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like, they feel
I know
good.
all
Yeah,
about it. I know all about it.
relief. Um,
But
so yeah, I ended up coming out here. I did the program for 1,700 online, and it just wasn't enough. I wanted to go deeper. It was enough for me to be like, this is interesting. So I paid for the $10,000 private, flew out to Idaho. We got a Airbnb here for the month, got a truck, stayed out here. Very peaceful. You're in Canada. Very, very nice and calming. It's quite
yeah,
special.
yeah.
Um, and then ended up doing the program, and in a month we've broken through the course, essentially finding out some incredible pattern restructures, some of them being um, most of my talk therapy was behind my father and my fathers that were very abusive, and thinking like, oh, you must hug your inner child because he's hurt from these wounds of your dads and all these things. And it turns out that the thing that left the most lasting impression, which is crazy. I love sharing this because it's like, what? Like the brain is fascinating. Um, happened to be my mom, my grandma, my uncle. So my first dad, very abusive, drug addicted, threw us around. Whenever I had to go visit him, he would say, "Don't tell your mom that I hit you, or you won't be able to come back." So I had to live like a double life. Second stepdad was very weird, stoic Mexican dude, didn't talk at all, watched murder mysteries. I thought he was gonna poison all of us, like the whole family, because he was a janitor. I was like, I'm gonna die one day. Left a weird impression. Then my best friend's dad was a mean drunk, very abusive. And last time I saw him, he'd hit us every day. I stayed there like 6 days a week because I didn't want to be home. Um, and I learned to dodge a punch. And last time I saw him, he tried to slit his throat and his wrist in a bathtub, and I had to call ambulances and paramedics. And I say this not to be like a sob story, it's more like data and understanding, because for a long time I assimilated with these stories, and I was like, "Oh, I'm such a wounded child," bah. And really, really,
Yourself,
what was that?
right? Like we can almost victimize ourselves, like poor me.
Correct. So,
Mhm.
and I actually, the reason this all came about was I am not a victim scripter. So
Mhm.
I kind of pushed that off to the side, and I would say things like, oh, there are kids starving around the world. My life isn't that bad. There are people being, sexually abused from age 5 on. My life's not that bad. So I always kind of compartmentalized it and finally decided to start talking about it openly in therapy. And I started noticing that everyone kind of had the same message. I thought, man, this is kind of interesting, but I don't feel like it's healing me. I just feel like the same behaviors are happening, but now I'm just like hugging my inner child. So the most fascinating discovery from being here are twofold. Number one, it was the love my grandma, my mom, and my uncle gave me, overcompensating for my abused childhood, not teaching me how to emotionally regulate and cope and manage emotions, but rather to really, get what placate to whatever I needed. So I never learned to manage myself. It was always, oh, you need something? Here you go. Here it is. Um, so fast forward now as an adult, when I hit high peaks of emotional distress in a
Mhm.
company, I do fine because it's, next step, next step, next step, next step. However, in relationship, I hit a wall because I don't know how to manage myself beyond a certain point. Why? Because part of the coping mechanism to survive is control. So I learned to control my work environment, my surrounding, my ecosystem, have a chef, I do my routine, like I said, I have a sense of control. Then when it comes to a human being that's a variable that's not controllable, you're like,
Right.
I can fix this, I can fix this, let me fix this, let me show you I can fix this. And in showing and trying to show somebody that you can fix it pushes people away heavily.
Right.
So,
Yes.
isn't that fascinating? So I'm fascinated that loving somebody or being modeled love as a youth in the wrong context can actually leave a lasting negative impression on the heart and mind. Like that's wild to me. Yeah.
Oh. And it's like you're literally modeling in your relationships what was modeled to you. There's a
Mhm.
problem, there you go,
Fix it.
right?
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
And women don't want you to fix it. Like sometimes women just need you to understand, need you to
Walk away.
listen, you
Walk away.
know?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Give
Yeah.
space, give time. Like, do you need this masculine, secure masculine journey of conscious masculinity has taught me a lot. For example, do you need someone to talk to right now and listen and understand, or do you need someone to help you problem solve in this instance and in this moment,
Mhm.
Or I need space, I need to walk away. Is not a you're broken, I don't want you, I don't need you. I'm struggling with something mentally and emotionally, and I need to go decompress or reset myself. I'm trying to figure out my own journey. Um, these are tools I didn't have before. I love your brain. I love that we're talking about this, by the way. Love this subject.
Dude,
Another,
I find it so fascinating. So, and I love that you're doing your work. Like, that's incredible. And we're going to talk about this during the interview. I love this. Yeah,
yeah.
keep going.
The other one is um, so as a youth, since I didn't have a paternal model, this one's fascinating to me too. This is like the love one where you would think, what? How? Since I didn't have a male model for masculinity, what I ended up getting was, sorry, long hair.
You look, you look fine.
I know I try not to wear the hat for too long because it's not good for the hair, It's like hurts the follicles and whatnot. So
Needs to breathe.
yeah, it needs to breathe. Otherwise, you get that like flat head hurt pain of your hair. Um,
Plus, you have nice hair. You don't want to hide that.
Thank you. Yeah, let the locks flow, right? Likewise.
Exactly.
So since I didn't have a paternal model, I ended up turning to movies. So a lot of my modeling for love comes from movies. And
Mm.
that's been a fascinating thing of discovery, you know? So in coming out on the other side, it turns out that, you know, which is not based in reality, but Love Actually, The Notebook, Grease, Forrest Gump, Titanic, all of
Yeah,
these like climactic, really emotional highs, fallout, drop, lovers go their separate ways, something destined comes back to them, but there's the male always trying and approaching,
yeah,
and you know, the woman kind of fleeing seems to be the model for the most part. And I find that hyper fascinating, you know. I even read a paper about male and female pornography. Masculine pornography is visual, you know, like we're like
yeah.
I want to see it happening. Oh, you know, very Neanderthalic, you know, very very primitive, you know, like me,
Caveman.
yeah,
Yeah.
me leaf, me get, you know, kind of deal. Where on the
Yeah.
other side, feminine pornography is more of a story and a journey, a commitment to a character.
Mm.
Um, so romance movies, novels, all that female pornography ignites the female libido, right? Gets us like really and creates this really unrealistic expectation of masculinity. Like Twilight, the guy glitters, he's rich, he doesn't work, he's there at your beckoning call, something happens, he picks you up, you know? Like it's just like these things where you go, man, if I had a Twilight, he'd be homeless because we live in 2024 and you need to work, you need to have a job, you know?
Yeah.
So the female pornography versus the masculine pornography and like what incites lust in each of us and what that story tells and what that does for us, you know. It's been very
Mm.
fascinating to see. So I very much fell into the feminine pornography side of really falling in love with love. I love love, which I still care to love. I think love is the most powerful, most beautiful energy in the known universe.
It is.
um,
It
but how you
is.
manage and curate that is incredibly important. So that was a big undertaking of learning where I learned the modeling movies, and then like that red pill, like toxic masculinity, like Andrew Tate type, you know,
Right.
characterization.
Yeah.
And I think most men have fallen prey to that.
I think so too. And I think even women, like
Mm,
women have fallen prey to like falling for the Hollywood story of having this knight in shining armor. And, like we don't have a very healthy understanding of what is a relationship, right? And, the roller coasters, the ups and downs, and how do we handle them? And do we, when we go through something, do we just say, okay, I'm out, I'm gonna find someone else, right?
no,
Like I don't think that even women are prepared to understand. Like I got married, when I got married, I was like 22.
wow.
I so unprepared. In my
Right.
mind, I thought I knew what it was like to be a wife and have a husband and all that stuff is so untrue. Like it's insane how unprepared I was, And of course it ended, right? Like you really have to understand what it means to be in a relationship and what kind of a commitment that is for yourself and for another human, right?
For
So
yourself.
it's
That was
like,
so, yes.
yeah, and it's like, and at 22 or whatever young age, it's like you first need to build that relationship with yourself and
Mm,
understand yourself, right? Because how can you know what you want and need in a partner if you don't even know what you want and need from yourself, right?
mm,
So
mm.
that's
Yeah.
something that I certainly learned in life.
Mm.
And the ability to really know yourself, I think, is first and foremost before even intertwining another human into your
Super.
life, right? Because you're going to have an outburst or you're going to have an emotional expression or experience, and that person is not going to know how to deal with it, especially when you don't even anticipate what you're about to do, right? Or like your emotions are just out of control, or you don't know how to self-regulate yourself. And, you put another two humans together, it's like there's going to be problems no matter how much you get along, right? Like that's just normal, right? And I think like Hollywood and all those movies, they all give us all these narratives. And then there's that, and that creates an imprint on our like our conditioning and our thought patterns. And then we meet the person and we're like, you're nothing like what Netflix told me.
Yeah. What the heck is going on here? You know? Yeah. No,
Uh,
I agree with that full-heartedly. And you said something interesting though about The knowing self, I, and I'm guessing that comes to self-regulation. I'd say the most important aspect of a human is self-regulation. And I think
Yeah.
what you're getting at, if I'm hearing that correctly, is knowing self is a byproduct, or self-regulation is a byproduct of knowing self. Like you know yourself so well that you can self-regulate, but that's a byproduct of knowing self so well. Is that what I'm hearing correct?
Absolutely. Oh,
Well said.
100%.
Yes.
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
I full agreement. Yeah.
And I think like, a lot of people maybe don't do that inner journey, right? Like there's just so much and there's so much conditioning from childhood and life experience. Like there's so much to kind of sift through. But if you can just get curious on who you are for the rest of your life, because I think like our inner work, our self work, I don't think it's ever done because we continuously evolve and change,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Who I am today isn't who I was last year. And I need to stay curious on who I'm becoming, right? And who I'm being. And like we just have to always be curious. So I don't
Uh,
know if you can do that. We have like fighter jets and stuff. I don't know if you can hear the
yeah,
noise.
I
Okay,
can.
good. Oh, that's good. There's like they put on like shows with the military and stuff like that.
I hear you perfectly. And I have self-regulation is what I learned in the season in the last 4 months. And I had to even take a deep breath as you like said it, you know. Um,
Oh.
you can feel the sensation of wanting to release, And I've done incredibly well at finding peace, a peace in myself that I didn't know was possible because my mind always raced so quickly. And through this work, this practitioner, Busy Gold, uh, I can now sit in peace for days and weeks at a time, whereas before I couldn't do it for like seconds or minutes. Um, it makes me feel emotional because it makes me feel like if I knew then what I know now in so many
Mhm.
aspects of life, you know,
Mhm.
and how important it is for us to self-regulate and understand what those emotional outbursts can do. That's why I'm on this journey. I don't want my kids or my wife to ever have to say, Reef is a great lover and a great man, but, or accept when I refuse. My father was a fun guy and he was an incredibly abusive man for half the time that would throw you against a wall. But when he was in a good mood or he was coked up, he was the funniest, happiest guy you could ever imagine, or drunk or whatever, high.
Mhm.
But outside of those spectrums, he was not that. So I I have a lot of mindfulness now towards self-regulation and
Yeah.
the ugly that I have journeyed into and ventured into myself uh has been very interesting. And I think the most beautiful part about I think the gift of entering yourself to the depths that you want to enter yourself is that you learn a level of empathy, love, compassion, curiosity, care for others that most don't, because you've
Mhm.
seen what it takes to do it for yourself. And you realize when someone says it's hard work, I used to go, yeah, it is hard work. And now I kind of look at people and go, yeah, but how hard was your work? Because I think we all get the idea of like, well, it was hard, oh, this is difficult. But then there's levels of difficulty where sometimes you go into a dark cave of yourself for 15 days and you isolate yourself and you go, who am I truly at my core? Who is my being? What is my character? Right? What am I made of? What are these things that come up?
Yeah.
Entering that is a deep, dark, lonely journey. And to pairing, like you said, I think is beautiful. Once you have a pair partner that understands that with you and they want to venture and be curious with you and can hold hands and go down those paths and those narrow corridors together and explore, how beautiful. But until then, when you're doing it alone, it is an interesting path. You are in there in your own depths, sometimes even scared of your own humanity. Like, what? This is me. That's me. That's a characteristic of me. No way. And seeing those things just it creates, I think the biggest gift is a level of love, empathy, care, understanding, curiosity, and just genuine okayness with the world that most people don't receive. And I think that's been the biggest gift of this season for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's beautiful. And I think like a lot of people won't go there because, we all have that shadow of self, right? We're not
Mm.
perfect. And there are
Mm,
parts of us that are dark, and it's based on, whatever happened to us in life and childhood, circumstances. And I think like, although people don't want to embrace or open up the can of worms of that shadow self, I think that like that's where also empathy and compassion comes in, right? Like in
mm,
looking at the parts of us that are not so pretty
yeah.
and being able to confront those pieces of us and also want to change those pieces of us, you
Mm,
know? Like, I
yeah.
mean, I think that that's so important, like even if I think about myself, like there's parts of me that I have difficulty self-regulating, especially when it comes to like moments where I feel anxious, right?
Mm,
Like I'll say or do things I'll 100% regret. And I know that that's coming from fear,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
A lot of times when we're not self-regulating, if we're angry, we're actually fearful. A lot of times what we're covering up is the emotion of fear and it's manifesting as anger. But deep underneath all of that anger is someone who's very fearful,
Yeah.
And when I think of your story, it sounds to me like you didn't have a lot of safety growing up. So it just makes sense that as you get into your relationships or work, you're creating structure and boundaries because you're looking for control. Because if I didn't have safety as a child, I'm sure as hell going to make sure I have a control as an adult because I want to control my environment. I want to control my ability to feel safe, right? By
Mm,
having in place. So I think like just there's so much imprinting that happens to us as kids. But as we're
yeah.
adults, like I like the fact that you're at this thing in Idaho because it really helps you understand it's not just about embracing and holding and coddling your inner child. It's about doing an interruption of the patterns, right?
Yeah.
Behavior patterns. Like, how do I stop this? How do I
Yeah.
recognize what caused it? Okay,
Yeah.
that's awesome. But now let's move forward. How do
Wire
I
it.
prevent it? Exactly. How do I rewire my brain? How do I stop this from happening? Because it's affecting my relationships. You're seeing it, especially if it's a pattern, right? It's happening time and time again. And at some point, you're like, okay, I am not looking to relive this. How do we stop and rewire and change our behavioral patterns, especially with those we love or the relationships we're trying to build, right? Because you want to be building from a place of a healthy relationship, right? Healthy emotions. So I love that you're doing that. That's amazing. That's really amazing. Like, I hope you're recognizing yourself for taking time out of your life to prioritize you.
In ways that I'd never thought before possible. And the fear thing does resonate in some capacities. I think we do
Mhm.
operate in fear, and I think the number one the most common reaction for men is frustration and anger.
Yes.
That comes out. That's a very common male reaction to emotion.
Mhm.
Um, and I could see there being a lot of fear in or unsafety as a youth, and then creating control in order to blanket that to be able to have a sense of safety because I create my own safety, very
Correct.
self-reliant. So I can't,
And
yeah, I can definitely see.
anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you don't need any, or you're trying to make it so that you don't need anybody because you couldn't
Yeah.
count on anybody as a child. And now as an adult, you learn to count on yourself.
Hmm. Yeah, I can see myself saying that several times
Mm,
out loud. I don't need anybody. I just need myself. And I think that's
yeah.
I mean, and the repatterning and rewiring is really where Busy has been. She's so good at it, fascinatingly. Like she has a gift and she has a program. Um, there are therapists that are now getting accredited with it across the US. Like this woman is doing big things in the medical, like mental health space, which I love. Um, and just in seeing how she's interacted with me and seeing where those patterns up and the pattern interruptions, my
Mm,
goodness, my goodness. I can't sing her praises enough. And it has really been life-changing and shifting work. So much
yeah.
so that I will commit a portion of my life after this to helping people consciously separate if necessary, or also
Yeah.
instead of relationships pointing the finger at each other, learning how to look within self.
Mhm.
My content will be all faced around, if you see any list that says 10 signs of a narcissist or 10 signs of emotional abuser or 10 signs of whoever or 10 signs of a llama, delete that post and report it. Because if it's not saying I am this type of person or seek within, get rid of it. Do not look for
Mhm.
the signs in another person. Look for the signs within you. Who are you
Yes.
as a person? Um, so that way relationships end up focusing inwardly instead of externally, you know. And
Like,
the last one would
yeah.
be masculine, conscious masculinity, just helping men that have also struggled with what I struggle with and saying, hey, you can be a conscious man that cares for other women. You're not just living in like this mouth breather, troglodyte, caveman, you know, Neanderthalic state where you're just like, oh, me work, me do. But rather you're cognitive and self-aware of how you show up in the world, you know. I think that's important.
I love that word, self-awareness. I think that
Hmm.
that, like if more people had more self-awareness, there would be a lot less problems, within ourselves and trying to notice our own, thought patterns and our own behaviors, and also awareness in others and trying to understand other people and some of their underlying motivations. Like self-awareness, I think for men has been a very, very much a growing topic. Like I think more and more people are becoming more self-aware and are realizing like, I can't fix this
Yeah.
before I fix this, right? Like our external reality is just a reflection of our internal environment, right? Like there's a saying that says like, the window is actually a mirror. We think we're
Mm,
looking out the window, but the window is actually a mirror reflecting back to us who we
yeah,
are, who
yeah,
we are, because that's
yeah.
actually what we see, right?
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. And there's an interesting thing there. I think there's that what you just said is a great point to what I think we're struggling with as a society and as a humanity. And
Mm.
this topic is kind of very dear to me. You know, men and women are built differently. We're structured differently through society, through social norms, et cetera, you know? And I think what you're expressing is very clear from a feminine point of view, you know, because it does say, you know, men becoming more conscious, more self-aware, and, you know, self-actualizing is a truth. You know, it's something that we are walking into now, and like we need to start being more mindful of the feminine and the masculine, right? However, if I look at societal structure, you have a very different upbringing than I do in society. You know, your worth is already destined to you before. Oh, hey, thanks, thumbs up. Your worth is already destined to you before you do anything. Females, women are
Yeah.
valuable before they do anything. You know, you're a princess, you know, a daddy's little girl, or you know,
Mm.
you are protected by the tribe from
Yeah.
takeoff, right? And that creates for the feminine a very interesting perspective, because your perspective sits from a place of I'm already, you know, those videos you see where women are like, what are you? Oh, I'm a 10, I'm a 10, I'm a 10, oh, I'm a 9. And guys are like, I'm a 7, I'm a 4, I'm a 3, I'm like a good 6, you know? We have been preconditioned and programmed women to be in a state of I am already deserving, I am this. Men
Yeah.
were to work and create and build from the masculine. So from the masculine, hearing that on your end, it's true, we have to be more conscious, but the actual perspective of us having to fix the outside world before we fix us is how we are conditioned and programmed to receive attention, to receive acceptance, to receive validation, to receive value. We must
Worthiness, right? Like that's your worth by what you do and create and bring.
where whereas a woman's worthiness is already from birth. You're the mother of our children. You are right. So that perspective shift of worthiness is like a woman's worthiness. For a woman to understand the masculine, she must step into the masculine, understand a man doesn't have the time always to sit down and be self-reflective or into the mirror, because that's not available to him. He's trying to be industrious or building or doing what he needs to do to be worthy in our society, right? Whereas men, we have to take a step back and say, hmm, what is worth to a woman, and how can I show worthiness to a woman that reflects the way that she operates and thinks of the world, because she's been raised with a certain type of programming. When we can measure and blend both of those together and understand each other, the masculine and the feminine, that's where there's true congruity, right? That's when you can say, I see you because you see me, and you can say, I see you because you see me, and how we were conditioned. So that stood out to me there with what you said. Yeah, yeah, which I think is fascinating for our society.
Thank you. Thank you for that because it's a perspective I hadn't previously seen, but you're right. You're born into like, men must do things and create things and, make money and build companies and like we and men are continuously comparing themselves with other men, right?
Mhm.
In terms of status and their income and their achievements, and it's like, and it's a constant comparison game because from childhood they did not learn that they were inherently worthy just by being.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
The same way that women compare with another woman's, body parts or how they look or what, how much more wifely they are, or like how much more maternal or feminine they are. Like we both have games of comparison, but if you look at the data of what we're correct. Yeah. What we're comparing, the data will give you a very clear understanding of how we have been conditioned, women versus men, because you're already deserving. You are already worthy, but are you as worthy as this other person because they might look a little bit prettier, or maybe they're more worthy because they're more feminine? Whereas men, it's like, oh, shoot, I need to prove my worthiness. And my comparison points are, am I making more money? Am I number one? Am I number two? Am I number three? Where do I stack up? So those two conditionings are very fascinating, and they say a lot about the feminine and the masculine. Yeah.
They do. They really do. Yeah. Wow. This is so good. This should be our podcast interview. It's good that you got it. No, but that's fascinating, and I think that there needs to be a more awareness around the, the other gender and like, okay, like what is your life experience? What are you growing up with, right? And what are you struggling with? Because everything that happens to us in childhood where we were very much, a lot of it we were also like not very conscious of what was happening. It actually manifests in adulthood,
Mhm.
right? And then we're like, okay, why am I this way? Why am I, like like for me, I have like so many like abandonment issues from childhood that as an adult, I tend to be super self-sufficient. I don't need anyone, and it creates like distance in my relationships because I don't tend to reach out or call or text, or yeah, I'm sort of just in my bubble, doing my own thing, self-sufficient, striving
Safety.
and it's like, oh, it's because I probably don't want to put myself in another position where I feel abandoned. So then I just won't create close relationships with people, but it's like really understanding the unraveling of that. Like, wow, so many things that happen in your childhood totally mess you up as an adult unless you're prepared to sort of go there and go deep and understand it, and not just understand it, but change the wiring, change the belief system, right?
Yeah.
Change it so that you don't continue to perpetuate the same cycle or like, attract, say, the
Mm.
toxic partner or whatever it is. It's like, okay, if you're attracting a toxic partner, there's a part of you that's toxic that's actually brought that person in because if
That's a
that
hard
was
pill to swallow. Hard pill to
same,
swallow, but yes, very
yeah,
true. That's a
yeah,
hard pill to swallow, but wow, yes, agree.
totally. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, what part of me requires more attention and healing and changing, like, and that's part, it goes back to like admitting that we have a shadow self. There are parts of us that are
Mhm.
dark,
Yeah,
right? But it
yeah,
doesn't mean that we can't bring light to them,
right.
right? But we have to actually get in there and we have to get into the dark. Like we have to be willing to walk in the dark,
You have
knowing
to. You
that
have to.
you will find the light, but you first gotta step inside.
And the saying, cliche as it is, the more comfortable you come with the dark, the more you appreciate the light. Like after a storm comes the sun, the more we can get into the darkness and being curiosity, like you said, the better. You said several things there about the masculine and the feminine, and I think curiosity, like you said earlier, and I really want to like push into that. Being curious of self, being curious of your partner, being curious of the other, being curious of other people builds a level of understanding of self and others most people don't get. This season has been very good for me to ask questions and be more curious of reality, which has been very good. And it has been like one of those things that I stepped into where I thought I was already a curious person, and now I'm a hyper curious being. I feel like it's almost obnoxious the level of curiosity I have for humanity, people, things, like relationships. Like I'm just like, more questions, please. Like I can't ask enough questions because there isn't enough time in my being on this planet that will allow me to ask all the questions I want to ask. Um, and the patterning thing and the changing. This is huge for me. I could see the pattern. How can I put this? I couldn't see the pattern, but I could see that something was happening internally that I didn't want to have happen. but only after it would happen. So I would look back retroactively and go, what just happened to my reality? 5 relationships in a row that this has happened to, you know? And I'd go serious, only the serious ones. And I'd look back and go, what happened here? Like, how did this all come to fruition? So I knew I wanted to change. And after the third relationship, I thought, something needs to change here, you know? So I went and did some work for it. Then the fourth relationship happened. I was like, oh, I need to change this. I went to a program that promises you the stars and the moon. Nothing came from it, you know? It actually was just like a emotional upheaval, like you get emotionally lifted and then you still have your same patterns because there's no like one thing that I've learned from this whole process is if no one's doing a one-on-one diagnostic with you, if no one's doing a testing with you, if no one's doing any kind of behavioral conditioning with you, or they're giving you one-on-one attention, it is a seminar, period.
Yeah.
It's a feel-good seminar. You know,
Yeah.
you've literally
Yeah.
gone into like an emotional ego fluff that makes you feel really good, and you walk out and you're like, yes, I'm ready for the world, and then you get dropped back into reality. So this fifth relationship, which was a person that I respected a lot, you know, I was like, I respect your opinion and your mind and your brain, because we went about it the right way. Um, we started with you know, writing out our list of what we wanted in the other person, very intentional. We both wanted the same things, but we just couldn't achieve that, you know. So that brought it to me that it really is that challenge of internal self, your inner child, right, fighting each other. And if you really focus on each other's inner children, yourself, you can build a beautiful relationship. But the moment that becomes finger pointing outwardly, becomes this horrendously toxic thing. So this is the fifth relationship. Pattern repeats. I do my same push, pull, chaos, you know, like a child rolling a ball across a table. And as soon as the ball falls off the table, you know, a parent picks it up and puts it back and puts it back. And then finally, one time that the ball rolls off and doesn't get put back, it's over. Why is this happening? You know? So I could have enough mindfulness to see that, but I didn't know how, where, when those things were coming from. This young lady, Busy Gold, her shift in my life was being able to identify that safety to the brain is not sharp or dull like a fluffy stuffed animal or like a knife.
Mhm.
Safety is pattern. So whatever we're behaviorally patterned as a youth is what our brain creates as safety chemically. So for me, safety was chaos. For me,
Mhm.
safety was pushing and pulling. So when I look at my partner across the table, and this is where curiosity comes back in, instead of hearing my partner tell me, hey, things feel chaotic today. Do you feel that way? Instead of me saying, no, I feel fine, because to me, it is fine. Technically, I'm at baseline. You know, the other person might be like, yeah, yeah,
Too much.
yeah,
Yeah.
the other person might be like, help me, please, you know, and I might be like, we're cruising, you know,
Yeah.
altitude, what's
Good.
happening? You know,
Yeah.
everything's fine here, you know. So being able to see that the pattern of chaos and the pattern of pushing and pulling were real things that were happening now has me in a place of curiosity. So when someone says something like, hey, is this chaotic right now? I ask them, what do you mean? You know, like, I would like to understand that more. Be curious, because they're probably,
The definition of what chaotic means,
yeah,
because
yeah.
you might have a much higher threshold, you
Then
know?
yes, correct. So in my terms of chaos can be, and that's why I handle business so well, because I can handle chaos at a high level, you know. But looking at somebody else across the table, Dan Martell says it well. You know, he says that chaotic people have chaotic childhoods are really good business owners because they can deal in the chaos. When the storm is happening around you and there's a tornado, you can literally sit there.
Feels like home.
Yeah, this is nice. This is my living room, you know. Kids getting thrown across the table, mom's getting thrown against the wall, you know, like someone's on a bender, like drunk, and you're like,
Normal.
normal, right?
Yeah. Very
But just
normal.
that has a normal childhood or upbringing or more placid one, to them it's like, what's happening here, you know? So that curiosity has now struck me to, instead of stating, and this is the mindfulness and the conscious masculine, instead of stating everything's fine or I am fine from my perspective, note that when someone is telling you that they feel a change in energy or there's something that they're experiencing, to
Mhm.
be curious about that experience, to be like, hey, what do you mean by that? What are you feeling? I'm sorry, to me, I don't feel chaotic right now, but what feels chaotic to you? I'd love to know and understand from your perspective. That has been some of the biggest shifts. Understanding that patterns make your safety chemically. and that your brain tries to recreate that chemical fix, the addiction to what your childhood knows as safety, is the journey that most people aren't willing to take. And it's a hard journey because you literally have to fight your brain. I can't, Mary, I can't tell you how tired I've been this last month and a half to 2 months. I'm exhausted constantly.
Like mentally?
Mentally. I don't ever take naps. I don't remember last time I took a nap. Maybe in the last 3 years. I've taken more naps in this last 2 months than I have in 3 years. I go to bed early. I wake up late. I am being mindful of every one of my thoughts as they come in to rewire them and not let my brain believe that it's okay. And it's exhausting because I'm being so hyper vigilant of my thoughts. And I think for most people, they distract with like, here's a distraction, here's a new group of friends, here's a group that makes me feel good, and since I feel good, I must be good. That's the definition, right? Instead of, maybe I need to feel ugly first in order to, after chaos comes. Sorry, go on.
No, you're right. It's like we are so good at masking our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings. We're
Yes.
masking it with distractions, and it can come in various ways, like you said, whether
Mhm.
it's not watching TV, friends, whatever it
Yeah.
may be. It's like it's just so much easier to not deal with the thoughts in our
Mm.
mind. So much easier to ignore them, set them aside, compartmentalize them, put them in a box and put them far away, right? But the thing is, it's like our shadow. They just come back. They don't ever really leave us. It's actually more work to have to do that than to just open them up,
Yeah.
deal with what's there, you know,
Yeah.
change our patterning, our thinking, our behaviors, like make conscious choices, right? Be hyper aware of what's happening and consciously choose something different. Because I
Mm.
think what we forget is that we actually always have the choice.
Mm.
Choose to ignore it, I can choose to handle it. And yes, handling it is going to take a lot more time and effort and energy, and it's going to suck.
Mhm.
Like, yes, I acknowledge all of that. And I want
Mhm.
to do it because I don't want it controlling me. I don't want it controlling my life, my relationships, right? Like,
Correct.
I want to relinquish the control, but I can't relinquish control unless I face it head on.
Oof. I think that is probably one of the hardest. We have two things working against us as humans in this regard. A, our friends, which we love dearly, and the people we surround ourselves with, because our friends truly want to see us not hurt, like my mom and my grandma, my uncle. And
Anyone.
most friends, instead of saying, hey, you kind of have some baggage and you need to work on it, are more willing to say, hey, you're good girl, hey, you're good dude, hey, you're good bro, hey, it's them, not you. And I have so many of those conversations that I've had to push by the wayside. I can't tell you, out of love and learning how to curate that conversation. Reef, it's her, bro. Like, look at you, you're this and that. I can, both can be true. I can be this and that, and also need work on that, and this.
Yeah.
And for the time being, let's actually leave the other person out of it and not say that I'm more valuable or less valuable than that person. Let's just actually acknowledge that other person is a beautiful person, just as I am, going through their own journey. And if
Mhm.
anything, we can both be incredible mirrors to one another and share, hey, from my perspective, this is what was done. And if both people are open to that kind of conversation, you can both help each other heal wonderfully. If one person cuts that conversation off, then you know who the more healed person is going to be, the one that took the data in and is like, oh, I'm going to work on this because I'm going to be better. The other one may not, because they may not be ready to face their own data of how they were, who they were through that relationship and how they showed up. Part two that I think we have working against us is the brain's need for self-preservation. you know so in that, we think to ourselves like, uh, I I want to do the work. I want to do the work. I want to do the work. But the brain is screaming the entire time. No, no, no,
Mhm.
no. You're fine. You're good. And the brain is so good at tricking us into self-preservation. David Goggins, you always have 60% left in the tank or 40% left in the tank. The brain is going to tell you to quit. And you're like, no, I
Yeah.
got to keep going. You can actually tell your body to keep going. Well, who tells the brain to keep going? You have to self moderate your own brain and self police your own brain. Frontal cortex strong, work to say, hey, brain, no, we're going to go through this right now. And that's where I've been the most tired, is that self-preservation that my brain keeps creating, like you just stated, right? It's like very difficult. It's so difficult to say, I want to do the work. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to go into the dark. Because for most of us, we don't even know that there is a dark, and when we do find a dark, how to navigate that dark. And the brain the whole time is fighting us to say, no, you're fine. No, stop doing this hurts. I don't like this is dark, this is lonely. Let's go do something else. Let's go use a coping mechanism that we've used so well. Let's go use one of our many distractions. Let's go use one of our endorphin kicks. Drugs, alcohol, sex, female, male, people, friends, dancing, out, clubbing, travel, trips, horseback ride, whatever.
Let's soothe ourselves, right?
Mhm.
From the things that we don't want to face. Yeah.
Correct.
I
Self-soothing. Yeah.
self-soothing activities, right? And also self-sabotaging, right? A lot of the times also
Wow.
self-sabotaging. So it's
100%.
like you're trying to protect me, but ultimately you hurt me. So it's
Mhm.
like, okay. And I think like I was interviewed last week, and like one thing I talked about was like, we just have to get really better at being able to be the observers of our thoughts, of our feelings, of our emotions. Like, am I in the thought or am I observing the thought? Like, and I'm not attaching any judgment to something that I think or something that I feel. Like, the thoughts are not good, they're not bad, right?
Just off.
They're just data. Like you've said data so many times, because that is perfect.
Yeah.
Everything in my life is data. And how do we make a change? Do we look at one snapshot in time? Do we make a
Mhm.
change based on one snapshot? Or do we
Mhm.
keep collecting data and start looking at the trend line?
Mhm.
Oh, this is my behavior. You cannot know the trends of your behavior until you have
Yeah.
various points, right? Various data points. And now you start seeing patterns,
Yeah.
right? So once we have that trend line, and once we see the patterns, it could be with 5 relationships, it could be with 10, whatever it is, right? It doesn't matter. But once we're able to see, there's a repetitive pattern in me here. Okay, let's start looking at, where did it originate from? Let me get curious. I don't want to have any judgment on myself. Let me just get curious. Where could this, and it's great that you found her and she's helping you discover, like, where did this come from? Where did it originate? Because I think it's important for us to know, how did it happen? Like, we are curious creatures. We always want to know how and when, and and it's good to know those things because it's data, more data, and it allows us to rationalize, like, now I understand why I did this. And now maybe I can have more self-compassion for myself. Like, that child version of me or that relationship left an imprint, a negative imprint on me. Right. And here's how it's manifested. I've not maybe not been so good to other people in my life because of what's happened to me. But it's good for me to own it, right? To take responsibility for what I couldn't control, right? But also how I've behaved as a result of the things I couldn't control, and how those things I must take responsibility for. And it's like, when we take on responsibility, we take back our power. We take back our power because we're no longer the victims of our life, right? There's this new term. It's like woundology. It's like everybody's trying to like sell their sob story. It's like, you know what? Get rid of it. Get rid
You.
of it. It's not serving
Thank you.
you,
Thank
right?
you. Very
Yeah.
sell that. Everywhere. Sell that. Victim scripting is the bane of my existence. When I hear it in people, I've now helped 4 relationships and 3 men go through some of this work. And the women usually call me first with a long list of, he's this, he's that, he's that, he's this. And I have to ask the question, hey, do you want me to be here to listen to you emotionally, or would you like some counsel or advice or anything here? Well, I want help with this. Okay. Well, it sounds like I'm hearing a lot of things emotionally charged, and like you're picking from the last 2 years a list of what has hurt the most. Can I ask you a few questions? Yeah, sure. Okay. What has been the positive? What does that person bring to the table? Reframing the mind. Like, if we're going to talk about data, we have to talk about both sides of the data pool. Okay, what is it? 40-60, 50-50, 30-70, 20-80, 5-95, 10-90, you know? And then it's like, okay, now we really got to, are you willing to work on that 5 or 10%? And if not, that says more about you than the other person, right? Especially if they're willing or not willing, whatever that looks like. Um, and I think that does come from, like you said, observation, being able to observe rationally instead of being caught up in the emotion and the chemical release, being able to take a step back and breathe and go, I'm having an emotional blowout right now. But then as soon as you bring that to light, you know, a person can change rather quickly if they're cognitive enough and you can be that voice. Sadly, most of us are really good at victim scripting. And then we surround ourselves with other people that lick our wounds when we victim script. You know, we're like, but this, but that, but that, but this. And then they're like, I know you poor thing. You're such a, how could they? And I can't believe they did that and did this. And again, in this season have chosen the harder path. Like I have a group of friends that are constantly supporting me and like, we're team Reef, we're team this. I'm like, I don't want team Reef. I want team truth. I want team growth. I want whatever team is future setting for me, not picking sides, but rather what is the team that will actually create the best possible outcome for all parties involved, right? And that has been pushing people, not pushing people, realigning people's intentions behind the soothing, because I'm not asking for it, you know. I'm like, hey, I'm not really trying to get soothing from you. I'm just sharing data, and I don't want this to become like a woe is me party, you know. And you have to be mindful of that. If you're not mindful of that, you're actually chasing the chemical release that you get from someone making you feel better and soothing you, you know. So very mindful with that. And to what you said, the roots, getting down to the very bare minimum roots of where this comes from, and then understanding it so you can truly behaviorally rewire it to see where it's coming up. My roots have grown deeper than ever before. My next tattoo is going to be a heart in the center of the chest with a
Mhm.
oak tree growing out of it, and the vines or the roots of the oak tree going through the heart like the veins. I mean, it has a lot of symbolism to me because I've become, in my opinion, and from the opinion of people around me, a very grounded, masculine, secure, conscious energy in this time and space that I'm very proud of, because I've done some dark seeking that, you know, I had nights, Mary, that I was scared to be alone because I thought, man, I need to call somebody. I'm not, you know, the kind of nights where you think to yourself, do I really want to keep existing? You know, I'm kind of tired of this pain, you know, and I wonder how many men and women out there go through a journey like that and choose to exit the pain. You know, like it's so important for us as a community to sit there and hold truth for somebody and say, hey, you must shift. I'm not going to coddle you, but when you feel like that shift is too much, I'm here for you to release some of the pressure. Call me, you know. And I think that's what safety is, you know, that stable, sturdy safetiness of you can go through your experience and observe it, be it. But as soon as things get too hard, just know that I'm here for you. Like I can stand here for you and hold that space for you, you know. And the last one you said was the taking radical personal responsibility. I have taken the most, I think the probably not the most, but as radical of personal responsibility as I can take. I have sought out where could I have been better in this in every question I've asked, rather than where has this other person failed me? Why are they not doing XYZ? Why are they not doing ABC? But rather going into self and going, you know, where have I really dropped the ball here? What could I have done differently to get the outcome I wanted? Marriage. What should I have been? What should I have done? What was I not showing up like? You know, what has this other person availed to me as data that I can now take and really work on so that I can be that type of male? Because that male is what is I align with, to be that kind of man that creates and curates a relationship for strong, long-lasting marriage, you know. um and that radical personal responsibility has been wild in so many ways. In dating, seeking other women out for validation and uh like distraction, physicality also, right? The endorphin release, nicotine, you know, thinking about drinking, haven't 3 years I just don't drink, but there's been moments where I was like, ooh, drinking would be nice. Smoking cannabis, weed to release the brain. I did that for the first 3 months. And once I've left it, I feel so much clearer. Apparently, the next day it gave me anxiety that would make me impulsive. My impulsive actions, my movie,
Wow.
oh, it's incredible. My movie like seeking of somebody impulsively because I think that I'm being romantic and chasing and like, I'm going to sweep you off your feet again. Let's do love again. Right. Like how that shows up to another person, how they view it, like how it might take safety away from them or make them feel in fear. Like I've had to take radical personal responsibility in areas of my life that I look at. And my term before would be like, Reef, you're being so loving. Why is that person not accepting your love? You're just being so loving. Taking radical personal responsibility is, how is this actually affecting the other person? And to know that your actions may have negatively affected another person is one of the hardest pills to swallow. As a male, where your job is just to protect, love, care for your significant other, to know that you might be the root or the cause or their focus of not feeling those things is a place that I don't know most men if most men can take that, and actually accept that. I think most men would be willing to say, "Oh, it's her, bye," and let that go, rather than stand and go, where did I and where could I have shown up better? Where was this person pleading for love in our relationship? Where was this person asking for help in our relationship? Where were they giving me data in the relationship to say, I'm actually seeking this? And if you do this small shift, I think our lives will be better. Can we walk into this? And where did I say no to that? And why? Like to the industrious thing that we talked about. I can still remember in the relationship having conversations around, I want to make this work. And in my head, thinking, I don't know if we're going to be able to pay rent next month.
Okay.
So now being in that space of, I don't know if we're going to be able to pay rent next month and I want to make this work, I'm having to juggle both of those. And I want to make this work to me is a translation of if I can get our rent paid, if I can get our money, if I can get our revenue up, if I can get our dollar goals up, then I'll be able to give you what you want, which is us, because we'll have that money and safety. But in that moment, I didn't curate that conversation. I wasn't like, well, tell me what you mean. How can we do this? How can we carry this? Like, what do we need to do here? Rather, my brain was directly on, I have to show my worth and value as a man, where a woman is working on her side, showing her worth and value and trying to make the relationship work. And now we come to a clash because we just didn't know how to communicate the masculine and the feminine and what both were trying to accomplish and do, both trying to get to the same goal.
Mhm.
Chariots, like it's just um, two different vehicles. So that's been, a very interesting space for me in radical responsibility, looking at everything and saying, where could I have done better? Where could I have operated differently? What could I have? And taking that data and not making myself feel less than, but rather looking at his data and going, man, with all these nuggets, look at all these nuggets I have of wonderful truth and love and gold that will help out my future, taking those and putting them down on the table and observing them rather than making them afflictions on my body that I have to wear, I now can like smelt them, pound them, and turn them into beautiful badges of honor of, I now know what it takes to be on a journey like this because I've done the work. And thank you so much for giving me that gold. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And just like the way you've reframed it and like, okay, like, and these are not failures, right? Like we're learning, we're doing things and we're not getting to the results we're trying to achieve. And if we just sort of discard it and go find someone else, it means we haven't learned,
Mhm.
right? Like, we want it like learning. I was given a definition about learning. Learning is same circumstance, different behavior.
Mm.
So in the same circumstance
Mm.
and you have a different behavior, it means
Mm.
you've learned something, right?
That
To your
that's a very
point,
yeah.
yeah. So I mean, it's like a very simple explanation, but it's very true and applicable in multiple scenarios. If I've changed my behavior under the same circumstances, I have absolutely learned something,
Mm.
good or bad. Right? I've learned something because it shows in the behavioral changes that I've made. If I've learned something and I have the same behavior, then that's just knowledge. I haven't really, because learning, I think, is application, right? Application through doing something different. The other thing I wanted to mention is like you were trying to say, like, I want to make this work. And in your mind, making it work means like bringing to the table what needs to, like, being the provider. But I think a lot of times in relationships, we don't really ask what it is that the other person needs. Like there's that golden rule of like treat everybody the way you want to be treated. But it's like, yeah, but like, what if I don't want to be treated the way you want to be treated? So
Ooh.
treat them as they want to be treated. Don't treat them as you want to be treated, right? And we make so many assumptions in relationships based on our own filters, our own lenses. And what is important to me in making something work may not necessarily translate into what's important to him and what it means to make something work. You know, you're thinking like financially, we need to be stable and pay our bills and have a roof over our head. And then maybe for her, it's like, I want to feel emotionally safe. I want to know that you're there. I want to spend time with you. You're spending so much time doing this. I'm feeling neglected. So it's like, well, what does it mean to make something work? So that goes to like, what is it that you need? What do you need from me? What do you need from yourself? And I think we also have to ask ourselves, like, what do we need to give ourselves? Because we're looking to the other person to give us what we need. But sometimes some of those things can be fulfilled by you giving something to yourself. Like, do you need to soothe some of your own anxieties and like deal with that rather than needing the other person, you know, to show you validation or affirmation or whatever it is? Like sometimes what is it? Can we unload some of our needs and expectations from other people? Can we unload that and give it to ourselves or find someone else, whether it be like therapy, whether it be a friend group, whatever it is? Because it's like no human can give you everything you want and everything you need. No one human can do that. And the sooner we recognize that, our expectations
Yes.
start to go. And sometimes our expectations are just completely unrealistic. And like Hollywood has a lot to do with that. You
Yeah,
know,
correct.
awareness. Where am I feeling like my needs aren't being met? And
Mhm.
get curious. Why is that? You know,
Mm.
maybe I'm responsible for some of those needs. You
Mhm.
know, maybe I haven't cultivated a life where I have a support system. Like just getting curious. And I think in a lot of relationships, we can sort of project and place a lot of blame on the other person.
100%.
And it's like take that finger that you're pointing at your partner and like bring it back.
Three fingers back. I always say when you point one finger outwardly, you have three fingers that point right back at you. And people
Yeah.
rarely have three fingers that point back. They're always just focused on what's pointing outwardly. But these three are the most important. There's more fingers coming back at you than there are going out, you know? Um,
Oh, yeah, it's true. It's true. And be willing to look back and say, "Hey, what was my contribution in this failure or this, you know, this thing not working or like what was my contribution?" Because if I can't see my contribution, then I'll just bring that baggage and take it into the next company, partnership, relationship. I'm just gonna repeat my patterns, right?
yeah. Yeah.
So,
That's where love comes in. Like I think in this season I felt more love and empathy for my ex-partner than ever before and hoping that they don't go down that same path again. Yeah, especially when you watch them from the outside in and you're like, "Oh, you know, your heart hurts to see them using coping mechanisms that you once used." And you go, "Please, you know, like I know what it's like to go down that path. You know, I'm 36, don't do it, you know?" And you can't help all you can do. And someone said it well, love when you have a parental love, you'll learn love like no one else because you have to stand back and let go and watch things happen. And that
right.
to me, you know, is like, oh, I'm not ready to be a dad yet. Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's a lot of pressure. But taking that step into empathy and saying, okay, let the universe unfold the way it's supposed to and hope
Yeah.
for the very best and just have good wishes and hopes that like something clicks to understand, ooh, if I don't do this now the pattern will repeat, you know. And that's all you can hope for a person is that that awareness comes, you know. um a
Yeah.
total and radical responsibility. I did not ask enough in the relationship, what does this mean to you, you know. That I
Mhm.
did ask a lot of, you know, what are your expectations or what are you experiencing right now? So I asked that a bunch, but I didn't ask, what does this mean to you in that self-reflective, you know, push and pull of the beautiful, like feminine and masculine, you know, dance. And I found myself a lot being like, well, let's use this coping mechanism because I had one that I thought would work because it worked so well for me. Let's adopt this around all parties instead of, you know, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. What do you like about this? What do you not like about this? What stands out to you? What doesn't stand out to you? And that's been a huge, you know, reflection point for me in this season, along with expectations and the focusing on self, you know, is that I even though I like to think of myself as a curious person and want to be very loving for the other person, what you said is great. I projected what I thought was love to another person to the best of my ability through my Hollywood lens of understanding, raised in California and watching movies and all these things at the highest level, right? Watching these extravagant acts of love rather than asking what matters to you most, you know? Where I heard one time that was said that I'll never forget or probably be ingrained in my heart for the rest of my life. I like to give flowers once a week to my partner, that's like a thing my grandma used to do, so I do it now. And they expressed that I would trade the flowers in every week if I just didn't have to feel this feeling. And that was such a beautiful reflection point for me, that I still carry. And with the challenge that it's given me on my heart is this and that, not this or that.
Mhm.
I there should be no reason why you shouldn't be able to receive the flowers weekly and also not have to experience this. Because this is a me thing. It's an amalgamation of how I am entering the world, and that I can be responsible for and change. And that's been it's interesting how someone will say something in your life and it'll have a lasting impression on your heart, especially on how you view it. Like I could have easily taken the victim stance and been like, oh, they said all these horrible things about me, and now I'm this horrible human, like I'm dreaded. Or rather see it as data and go, okay, these are the things that are brought up to me. How do I elevate and turn all of these into my champion story and through empathy, love, care, understanding, and truly bring that to the forefront? And then not only that, but help others through that, or like my future relationships, or how is that going to impact my life rather than perpetuating and telling the same, like you said, people love their victim stories, like the same victim script of look at my reality, instead of taking radical personal responsibility and saying, you know what? Regardless of how this other person showed up, because they have their own journey, they're actually struggling with themselves. I get to show them empathy, and I'll actually experience more empathy if I go into myself rather than judgment, and then turn around and go, where could I have been better in all of these areas? And really be detailed, like phenomenally detailed. I have lists of how I could have operated differently where I'm like, I see that in this and past relationships where I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
it now, and I can
See,
work on it. Yeah. Yeah.
and we can't change what we don't see, right? So we have to make a conscious choice to not leave any stone unturned and say, hey, there's golden nuggets in all of this. And yeah, it sucks. And yes, I'm hurt. And it was not fun. But
Mm.
what do I take with me? Like, what can I learn from this? How do I grow from this? And if you can do that, then at least you've taken on that personal responsibility where it was like, you know what? I didn't know better then, but I know now because
Mm.
I want the better version of me into the next relationship. And I can't do that if I don't even know who that is, right?
Wow. It's fascinating that my North Guiding Star, I have three mission statements. One
Okay.
is my company mission statement, to feed as many people around the world as humanly possible through equally advantageous opportunities. That's what my company is. My personal mission is to make the world a better place so that future generations can have a better platform to answer some of the questions we haven't yet answered. So being a part of those greater questions, the ethereal questions, the questions that we haven't yet figured out. Where do we come from? Why, like the wisdoms of the universe. Those are fascinating questions that I think we can keep exploring. The other, the other, my last kind of North Guiding Star principle is how are my inputs today impacting the next 2, 5, or 10 generations? I believe that it is our personal responsibility as sapiens of this time, 2024, July 1st, as humans in today's era, the now, as we're understanding space, the ocean, and the brain to depths that we've never had before, the heart, the soul, the spirit, to be
Mhm.
able to sit in a space of bettering self. Because if we don't pay for the bill now, the next generation will. And are
Right.
you
And
willing?
it's a bigger one.
A bit correct because it's compounding, right? Like I'm facing generations of compounding hurt that has not been healed. My father was an abuser and attacker, my grandfather was on both sides, the grandfathers before that. all drinkers, all abusers of narcotics or drugs or whatever, you know? So I get left with this bill, and
Mhm.
now I'm like, oof, I have to deal with this. I want my next generation to have progressive new challenges. I want you to face the challenges that you need to face, but I am going to do my best job to face my challenges today to overcome as much as Reef as I can, so that the next generation, when you get held to the challenge, you remember that Reef, your father, your daddy said, I'm going to fight these things so you can fight your battles with pride, knowing that I overcame mine, and then you can overcome yours so that you can tell the next generation, daddy before me fought these. I fought these. You will fight those. Good on you. Because we'll keep having progressive problems, but they should be generationally getting us better, not generationally holding us down, you know? And
Exactly.
that's what lights me up for this season is I know that I'm doing work that will be generational work, that I am breaking chains that other people won't even understand. They won't even know how to they won't even know how to verbalize what I've experienced in this season. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think because you're very much committed to breaking that generational trauma that got experienced by your father and his father, and how far back does it go? It only takes one person to break that, right? And you've decided that that's going to be you. And one of my favorite mentors, Nick Peterson, he told me something last year that like has literally stayed with me every single day. And he said, first, remove suffering from yourself,
Mm.
because if you don't remove suffering from yourself, you inflict suffering on other people. And once you've removed suffering from yourself, start helping remove suffering from other people. But first you remove it from yourself, and then you help remove it from other people. And it's just like, wow, I can just go like play back the movie of my life and
Mm.
look at where I've inflicted suffering on other people because I was suffering.
Oh, I
You know,
love you. I
like,
love you.
wow. Oh, yes, so true, so true. And if we can just learn to deal with our traumas and all of our problems and remove that suffering, because if you look around the world, like everyone's suffering with something,
In one way
right?
or
Like,
another.
in one way or another, everyone is suffering. Yeah, yeah. Like, and that's kind of also the duality and the beauty of life. Like, you wouldn't experience bliss if you didn't experience suffering, right? You wouldn't experience happiness if you didn't experience sadness. So it's all part of our humanity, of just being a human. But I think the more awareness we can bring to our suffering, the less we will inflict on ourselves. And the byproduct is the less we will inflict on others as well. Yeah. And I just feel like that's literally the season of your life right now, Reef. Like you're literally in the season of removing suffering from yourself. And you're
Great.
also thinking about how you're going to help bring this message and bring this work to the world so that you can help others remove suffering as well. And I think that's just beautiful. Just beautiful.
I appreciate you for that. I think that should be everyone's challenge, should be removing the suffering from themselves at all times and seeking that, you know, finding where that's at. You know, I think that's a beautiful game to play. You know, I often say that through my hurts, I bled on other people, and I don't want to bleed on others anymore. You know,
Yeah.
uh, and I
We
think that
all have.
we all correct. I'm
Oh,
forgiving myself. You know,
yeah.
and in some ways going back in journey and time and making amends in a lot of ways and being like, hey, here's an observation, you know, whether they accept it or don't accept it, it's like, hey, I'm going to bring this to the light. And you're going to choose a victim script or not victim script. You're going to choose your journey regardless from what you hear, but I'm going to bring it to light and say, hey, here's what I've recognized, and I apologize for this 7 years ago. I apologize for this 10 years ago. Yeah, I didn't see it then. I see it now, and I see where that pattern comes from. So if there's any damage that was left through that, you know, here you go. And also here's someone that you could work with that could be awesome, you know. That way it's like, how do you how do you not only better self, but also make sure that that person's generation and lineage doesn't have to live with whatever remnants or bleeding you left on them, you know, because then that'll continue on. Once you give that data, it's theirs to do with, and they can do whatever they want. They can choose to be good humans, bad humans, whatever. But I at least get to be a person of character and forthrightness and righteousness and say, hey, here's the information. I apologize. Here's where it came from me. Let's understand it. Let's be curious together and empathetic towards this. I'm sure you have your own. And, you know, I think meeting someone that can say, I do have my own and I'm working on them is beautiful. it hurts. I think the thing that hurts most is being confronted with someone where you say, "Here's my hurts," and like, let's be curious, and then the other person says, "Oh, well, I don't have anything wrong with me. I'm fine the way I am. I just am. For whatever reason, you have to face that reality that they may not be prepared to face their own truths. Or shadow self, and that's the part that hurts most. I think with past lovers, friends, brothers, sisters is I think hurt's probably the wrong word. That's where you have to really bring in the deepest level of empathy and
Right.
understand that on their own journey at their own time and say, okay, you're not here yet and you're not prepared yet for this. I get to love you regardless. Maybe not as close as contact, but from far away because that's not healthy for me. I can't be around people that are not willing to seek self, right? But I still can love you enough to say, good luck. Yeah, I believe in you and your ability. Good on you. Um,
Mhm. Yeah, because really ultimately it's like you can control what you bring to the table. You
yeah.
can't control whether they pick up what you put on the table. You can't control that. And it's like, how do we relinquish expectation that just because we put it out there, that they're going to take it because they may not be ready. And as you said, they're on their own journey and they're just not, and they may never be ready. And it's like, how can we be okay that
Yeah.
we are going to detach from the outcome that they're going to show us because we can't control what they do with it. They can take it in, they can better themselves, they can heal themselves, they can like reflect and look at what they've done to others or what they've done to you or whatever it may be. But we can never be in control with that. And I
Mm,
think you're right, having more empathy and compassion for like, I wish you well, and I wish that you are going to benefit from the light the way I benefited from the light. I had to go
mm,
into the dark and that light. And if they're not ready for it, that is okay. That is okay because you were proud of you. You were proud of what you've brought to the table, right? And you were open to whatever the outcome would be. And you're gonna love them whether they do it, they don't do it, like it doesn't matter. It The outcome doesn't matter. What they do doesn't matter. What they say doesn't matter. None of that matters. All that mattered is that you showed up.
yeah.
You did what was right, what you felt was right. And in doing that consistently, you start to recreate your own identity.
Mm,
Who is Reef? Is he
mm,
willing to go back 10 years to make amends? And it doesn't matter if they don't want to. They hate you. They don't ever want to see you. They don't care what you have to say. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Were you a man of character? Were you a man that was willing to go back and take that risk anyway? And if it's yes, you better give yourself a high five, right? Because you did the work and you went into the territory that was very unfamiliar and you don't know what would come out of it.
yeah.
And if we could release on like, my expectation is that they're going to do this. No, 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 no. Have zero expectations. Just
Just give
bring it,
it.
just give,
Yeah.
give,
Yeah.
give. Don't expect anything in return. Just give.
Give from a full cup. I mean, I think one of the largest things that I've gathered from this season that has been so beautiful has been an understanding of unconditional love. And I think that's
Right.
a beautiful thing. My previous template would be once, once I realized a relationship was no good, or we broke up and I did my whole seeking, chasing, hey, I love you, let's make this work thing. Um, and then realized that the breakdown of the relationship was actually curated because that person wasn't the right fit. We ended up having sex, becoming sexually engaged, and then try to build a relationship off of a sexual lust, right? In this relationship, which was interesting, was that we did the work of understanding each other. We shared our list, what we were looking for, our vision, all that great stuff. And for all extents and purposes, we're like 95% the right fit for each other. Just our 5% was a heavy child that was fighting ourselves internally, not even the other person, just our own internal self. Um, so the fascinating thing about this last situation is not choosing hatred, which I would have done in the past. I have to hate you in order to forget you because it's a coping mechanism. I can't tell you how much harder it's been to choose love and say, you are hurt and I understand that you're hurt. And just the same way I've had really bad coping mechanisms that from my hurt that on your end probably look wild and ridiculous and crazy. I can see yours that to me are wild, crazy, and ridiculous. but I choose empathy and love and peace and tranquility and care and patience. That understanding of what unconditional love is, oof, that does a thing to me, you know? I think it's such a good gift, you know? It's such a beautiful gift to understand that. Um, and to
And
say that, go on, sorry, share. Yeah, love to hear your insights there.
sorry, I was gonna say like that's a gift you give someone, but more importantly, it's a gift you give yourself for your peace, right? Yeah.
I I have so much love on my heart to know that I can see another human being and go, I love you and I care about you and what you're experiencing. And I understand the things that you're doing and the way that you're operating are maladapted coping mechanisms. And I can still care for you as I have my maladapted coping mechanisms that I've also ventured into and I'm working through on my end and being very hyper vigilant. The level of vigilance on these coping mechanisms might be different, you know, or we might have different people around us that are sharing data or information into our hearts to help us on our healing journey. But at the end of the day, empathetically, energetically, I love and care about you consciously and say, hey, you're okay. I understand what you're doing. I don't hold it as any malice. Your actions, whatever you're saying or has been said, I totally understand that it's coming from a place of hurt and coping. And I care more about your long-term success and love and care in your future generations and your future kids and your future marriage and your future relationship or your relationship with self, because I truly care about you being a whole human, that I just wish you love and care and goodness. And if there's any way I can help, I'll be there for you when and if it's appropriate, you know, and likewise on the other end. But until then, heal well with all the love. And that has been the biggest gift to my heart that just sits. And I know, right? This has been a beautiful season, Mary. I can't tell you. I literally had a meeting that I had Kate here cancel because this conversation has been so beautiful. Like, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Reef. Wow. I feel like you have so much to give and share with the world. I think this message, the way you're thinking, your journey, it's going to help a lot of other people,
Hope
men
so.
and women, and if nothing, it just gives permission for someone to acknowledge, like, wow, I can relate to him. I can relate to his journey. I feel like I need to start looking into myself and seeing how is he doing this and how can I heal this? Like I need to speak out about this stuff. And women, like letting our guards down, leading with our hearts, with our empathy, and
Mm,
connecting on a soul level, on a human level, you know,
mm.
like not seeing the barriers, not seeing our differences, but seeing our likeness, seeing our sameness. And loving you means if I love you, it's because I love me. Like I see you and you see me. You know what I mean? Like
Intimacy. Into me, I see. Yeah. Yeah.
that's beautiful. Into you, I see. That's
Intimacy.
beautiful.
To me, I see.
Oh,
Into you, I see. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that. I've never heard that before.
Isn't that precious? Yeah.
Yeah. And I just think like if we can like this is I think how we can change the consciousness of the world. Like this is truly how we do it. And it's through love, the highest frequency. The
Oh, I got
most
First Corinthians 13 put on my chest here because I
oh
think it's a
yeah.
beautiful, like out of this Christian scripture, I think it's the most beautiful and powerful representation of what love is as a definition. And I'm going to go on a journey of seeking love throughout all the texts of the world because I want to know the different perspectives of what love are. Like the Jewish culture has 12 different words for the word love, you know, raya, achava, dod. These words are different because of how they resonate, you know. And I would like to get those tattooed on my body as well because of they have a love for each person, a love for parent, a love for partner, a love for sexuality, intimacy, a love for friendship, long-term commitment, a love for food, you know. I did a podcast recently where I said, you know, we turn around in America and we go, I love tacos. And then you say, I love mom and dad, you know, with the same breath. And it's like, okay, is it the same kind of love as tacos? You know, it's depending on how hungry you are, you know, or if it's Yeah, Taco Tuesday, if you're hangry or not. I might trade my parents in for a good taco, birria, like like a really good carne asada, like lengua taco, and I think I think that the just that overall expression of what love is, I really wanted to find through other cultures and just see how other people's perspectives and really do a deep dive of what love is, because I think it's such a beautiful and powerful, like I love to study love, just I think it's so good. And I do hope to change a lot of lives through my journey. And you said something that was so powerful about the feminine, and I'm sure you meant both sides, but learning self, knowing self, and really getting intimate with self. I think social media is a construct that has severely hurt our women and our men.
Mhm.
You're seeing more 30, 40+ year old women that are like, girl power, I got you. Forget him, all is good. 20-year-olds are like, I have to be free spirit in this time. My body's only tight like this once in a lifetime, And it's how, social media is programming us. On the masculine side, we turn around and we see things that are, women in different bathing suits and we're getting targeted. We're getting bombarded by these things. Andrew Tate, you got to be a man. You should have a concubine. All these women, women are getting list of, he's a narcissist, 10 signs that he's an emotional abuser, 10 signs that he's a this. And then all of a sudden you're out of a relationship, and the algorithm is flooding you with dopamine. This is what love is. This is what a relationship is. Look at these happy couples. It's almost as if these social media platforms and channels have found a way to monetize and know that we spend most money when we're at the beginning of a relationship rather than when we're stable in a relationship, because then we go into conservation mode, and they're exploiting us to use and utilize our funds in order to get in and out of relationships, because we'll spend the most money to get a relationship back, and we'll spend the most money when we get in a relationship to prove, hey, look at what we're doing, how much fun we're having. We've gone the most amount of dates at the highest level of frequency. But once we get into a pattern, it's no longer exciting for social media. So social media seems to be triggering us to exit relationship and enter relationship at a very high rate.
Right. And and they do that by creating that divide, by showing, by showing men, women are everywhere and they are a dime a dozen and you can get them now, and they're dispensable. Like you go through them, like like however way you want. And then for women, it's like, okay, men also, like, men need to do certain things. Oh, look at her. Look at her. Look at what he's done for her. Look at what he got her. Look at what they're doing. Look at their vacation. Look, 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 look. And then it's like, oh, what is it doing? Oh, it's creating a divide. It's curating an unrealistic reality of like what it means to be in a relationship, right? And it's a
Pure,
roller coaster. But like social media is like curating the highs and curating the lows, right? Like he's a narcissist, don't you don't need men, you don't know, you know what? Men and women need each other. It's just, that's how we've continued to survive. Right? So it's like you're and of course social media is there to monetize, obviously, right? Like it's not going to monetize off of the mundane. It's going to
yeah,
monetize highs and lows, and it's unfortunate, because the algorithm has so much to do with the reality of
yeah.
your reality, right?
Your
Like it
perception
has.
of reality, what you
Yeah,
viewed.
exactly. So now that's somebody controlling my mind, somebody
Mhm.
controlling filters in my lenses and how I see life, how I see people, how I see men, women, humans, whatever it is. And it's like, and it's crazy, but I think if we can be cognizant and aware that this is what's happening and consciously choose what's right for us, not what people tell us is right. There's a
Yeah,
big difference. Big
yeah.
difference.
Speak,
Right?
preach. Yes. Yeah,
Happens, it goes back to awareness. It always goes back to awareness. Awareness of our environment, awareness of our thoughts, feelings, emotions, awareness of others and
yeah.
their intent, right? Like it always goes back to like, be a critical thinker. Think
Conscious,
critically happening
conscious.
about yourself and what you've done, how you're showing up, your behaviors, and also of what's around you. Like question everything. Don't be afraid to question things, right?
Yes.
Like life is not about answering the right questions, right? And having the right answers to the questions. It's about creating your own. Create your own questions. Seek your own answers.
Yeah.
Right. I feel very passionate about this.
No, I'm right there with you, because I part of my content will be, I said it earlier, it'll
Yeah.
be challenge the status quo, challenge the algorithm, fight the
Yeah.
people can't the algorithm. Like if you go against the algorithm and say, I will not, I will report every piece of content that shows this type of person instead of a calm, thought-provoking, conscious, cognitive, self-aware, like they're called like woo-woo women, the women online that are kind of way out in left field, and they're like, well, you just have to manifest everything through your mind, or what are they called? Uh spiritual fuckboys, like these guys that say all the right thing, but they're yeah, I said it here, right here. This is going live. These spiritual fuckboys that say everything right. They have a feather in their hair, like out of their, ear, they have their nails painted, and they like are overly eccentric, but they're so secure in their masculinity, come with a lot of hurt. Like if you look right past their veil, you're like, man, that's a
Mm,
damaged child right there, Same thing with like the woman side. You're like, ooh, that's a damaged girl there, Like we're not expressing in a format that is like a true conscious masculine and feminine, like the feminine and the dichotomy and that dance and the polarity between the two in a format that's stable and grounded and calming. We're grasping for these large straws that are out there that are making us feel good in the moment, because that's what they're doing, coping, band-aiding, and all these things. But social media is riddled with these things. Like it's just everywhere, these louder than larger than life eccentric humans that are great clickbait, that are
yeah,
essentially infest, I will say, infest the minds of our women and men, because then you have a very perturbed view of reality. Mine was with the Andrew Tate, red pill, all that. And then on the other side, movies, like what I've ingested visually, just like what you eat physically, has created my reality and my perception. And social media is doing the same. And I'm on an absolute warpath. I will call out like the people that I think have good relationships are the ones that are sadly not online. You know,
correct. They
you
don't need
know
to
that
prove it to anyone.
Correct. They're like, I'm happy. Why do I need to go to anyone? Like I'm happy genuinely who I am, where I am, what I'm doing. I think there's maybe one or two out there that I look at and I go, wow, I really admire what you have. And I would really like to have what you have. The rest of them, I'm like, no, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to have that kind of woman. Like there's a lot of that, right? And I think that that's fair to say that there's many perspectives. So a lot of different people might assimilate with different types of relationships, which is totally fair. But I think that we can come to a common consensus or a group like baseline that says this is what a good conscious relationship looks like. Just like we can say you shouldn't murder people across the world and say, oh, that
Yeah.
makes sense. It's probably not a good idea, or like you shouldn't do drugs every single day of your life. Okay, that's a pretty good idea. You can also create a format of some tools that say this is what the foundation of a good, healthy relationship should or could look like, regardless of if you like, going out and shooting birds together, you like playing pickleball together, or you frisbee golf, or maybe your passions are who knows what, right? You like riding seals in the winter. I don't know. But whatever you like doing, here's like a conscious framework that should work for all people, so that these women and men are no longer taken by like spiritual fuckboys are just dangerous. They'll just make you feel like everything's fine in the moment. You get lost in it. You're like, oh my god, I found a part of myself, when really they're just igniting your senses. They're getting into you emotionally. They're using the trigger words that they know open your heart. Then they're taking advantage of that, using physicality and exploring physicality. When a good masculine secure male says, I want to get to know who you are as a human, let's date weekly for a few weeks. Let's see how that works as we both live our lives, because we're just reintegrating our lives, like we're just learning how to just kind of touch base with each other. You keep doing your life as you have been doing, I'll do my life. Weekly, let's touch base and have a good time. Let's have a few phone calls a week. I really want to get to know you and who you are, your mind, your brain, your emotions, because I'm going to marry your soul and your heart and your mind. That's what's going to be with me for the next 60 or 80 years.
Right.
Sadly to say, what's between your legs and what's on your chest will sag at some point. Things will be different. The skin will get wrinkly, as mine will, My guy might not always stand,
The
and
reality, it's like, are you going after the package? Because that package is going to change. Or are you
oh,
going after the person, behind the package, inside the package? And it's
Eric,
like, and I think
yeah.
that's those are some of the questions that maybe we don't always ask ourselves. Like, can I sit in silence with this person when I'm 80? You know,
Mm,
I'm still going to appreciate their presence.
Yes.
Do I
Yeah.
want this? You know, do do we have a similar common vision for life? Do we value the same things?
Yes.
How do I get along with them? Like
Yeah.
there's so many questions that go beyond those honeymoon years,
Yeah.
right? It's not about the honeymoon years. It's about the
Yeah.
enduring years. It's about,
100.
right? Like it's about the decades that we're going to be together. And
Yes.
can I love that person, deep, deep, deep on the inside? Can I love them? Can I love their spirit, their essence, and their soul? Because that's what you're marrying.
100%. And there's a saying that I love that goes, you go through 1,000 deaths and 1,000 rebirths in a good marriage, and you have to learn how to love each other through those 1,000 deaths and 1,000 rebirths. And the spiritual fuckboy does not allow that. The spiritual fuckboy is there for the moment, the intimacy, they get it, they got it, good, and then on to the next. But that foundation of, am I learning this person's character correctly? Am I getting to know you, dating, courting? Like, who are you at your core? What triggers you? Can we be good in pairing before you make that chemical engagement to somebody where you say, now our endorphins are involved. I'm leaving a piece of me inside of you and you a piece of me inside of me. Chemically, it's what happens. And they're proving that through science, right? You're literally leaving your stardust in a person. Like, that's a passionate thing that you're exchanging. Those men are hurting our women, our girls. A woman is someone's daughter. A woman is
Yeah.
someone's cousin. A woman is someone's mom. A woman is someone's aunt. A woman is someone's grandma. Like,
Yeah.
love that precious, beautiful. Tether yourself. Control your character, your manhood. Control the man that you are with respect and character, because you are literally reframing what love could look like for another person, or changing a trajectory of theirs. Or maybe you're compensating for them something for their future that they're not even aware of in the moment yet, that you can be a part of their greater story. Women on the other side are the same thing. The woo women. I can only speak to men because I know that character well, but the woo women that are like, let's get into this and let's energetically feel each other. And then next thing you know, you have, this attachment that's really tight, really fast, really quick. And you're like, oof, where's the congruity there? And we're trying to force all these different pieces into the box, and you're like, well, we can fit this here and that there. And now there's a relationship, rather than taking the work of being alone and not having to have that male structure there, and building feminine self and saying, I'm okay woman here. And I can tether between, or balance between, being an individual woman and also understanding that relationship is incredibly important. So I'm not pendulum swinging one way or the other. So if a man comes by, I'm like, I got my girls, forget you. It's like, no, I'm with my girls because my girls and I talk about how we're going to build relationship, how we're going to build marriage. My girls and I don't bash on men. I stay away from those kind of women. I only surround myself with women that are excited to be with their partners, that are talking about how to be better women, how to be more feminine, how to attract the right type of masculinity. I'm around those type of women, not the ones that go, he's this, he's that, because there's a complaint fest. I'm in the same boat with men. The moment I hang out with a man that's like, oh, my wife is this, I'm like, hey man, I'm actually a big curator of speaking positively. I don't know your wife, and she's not here right now for us to have this conversation, for her to defend herself. So I feel like it's a little unfair, but I would love to know what you're struggling with. What are you going through? How do you show up in the relationship? How do you show up as a man? How do you show up as a husband? Do that to anybody, and you'll watch them either shut up and walk out, or self-reflect and go, man, that's a
Mm.
great, let's
Mhm.
talk, you know,
Yeah,
that's a,
exactly. And
that's a,
sorry.
sorry, after you.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Reef. And I think that that's also where a lot of like insecure attachment styles come in, and like anxious attachment, where it's like, okay, how do we fit this here? And how do we fit the, and how do you make me feel secure in myself? And I think at the end of the day, you have to feel secure within yourself without anybody else. Like you can't bring a secure attachment relationship together if you don't have two securely attached individuals coming together to form a secure relationship. And then you have like the people that are like anxiously attached, and they're always chasing the avoidance, right? Like the avoidant attached people and anxious, they're always somehow getting together, and one is the runner and one is the chaser, and it never works. Or
Yeah.
if it works, it's painful. It's painful. And it's like,
It's
how do you stop being a
sim-
runner and
sim-
avoidant?
yeah.
How do you stop being a chaser? and anxious. And how do you learn to be secure in yourself? And I like what you said. It's like, okay, well, what are you doing? How is this showing up for you? How are you feeling? And you're right. It's like if you're able to self-reflect and understand some of your own shortcomings, you can start becoming a little bit more secure in yourself because you're not trying to overcompensate by doing things, by trying to be with certain people, by trying to attain certain women, like how do you stop overcompensating and recognize you're overcompensating or you're trying to hide something in
Mm,
yourself, right?
mm,
Something that actually requires your attention.
yeah.
It requires your attention. It needs you to pay attention. What do you need to give yourself? You're running after her, trying to get that from her, or you're running after him, trying to attain this from him. But what do you need to give you in this moment?
Oh my God, Mary, hit it. Oh, that is so good. That is, you surmised that so well. The term that I've learned is called symbiotic dysfunction. When you
Mm,
live in symbiotic dysfunction, when you're in symbiosis with somebody else and there's a dysfunction, but you've learned to work within that dysfunction together. Symbiotic dysfunction, a lot of people operate in. I was part of the anxiously attached camp. Now
ah,
I am in the secure camp, which I'm so happy for, which it's being um, very cognitive of self, and being in a place of I am worthy, I am
mhm,
capable,
mhm.
I can be a man that shows up in love and loves you through your journey and what you're experiencing without having to control, own, operate all aspects of it, because those are all from the anxious side, self-coping and soothing mechanisms, because we have not learned how to dive into self and see what self needs. In going, man, I have goosebumps. Holy cannoli. In going into, oh man, it is such a good feeling. In going into to the depths that I have, I can say, I love Reef, the human being that I am. Mary, I'll share with you here vulnerably. I think we should make this the podcast. Okay, if you can send the Fathom and all the recording and everything over to Mary, this is just too, I think, in order for us to not, kick back to the world. Um, I appreciate you, Kate. You're so amazing. Thank you for being here through everything too. You're wonderful. I think in having that kind of self-awareness in this season, I've had women approach me, or partners, and I have done the job this season of saying, no, thank you. Like, I appreciate you, but no. Whereas before, I would just indulge in it frivolously and go, ha ha, almost like you know, like a buffet of just endorphins, like I can't get enough. Like watch me pick and prune from here and there.
You know
Um,
what?
what's that?
That's called restraint.
Mm,
Restraint.
yeah.
And more of us need to exercise restraint,
Mhm,
right? And
mhm.
what happens is when we have restraint, what emerges is receptivity. And these are two things that I learned from Dr. Jeff Spencer, who is the ultimate high performance mindset coach and someone whose work I study very deeply.
Mm.
Receptivity and restraint are the two things that high performers and champions do.
That makes
And I
total sense, because opportunity cost would take you from the receptivity. Because if you're indulging in something energetically here, it doesn't allow the space for something else to come in. I just wrote that down because it was so good. It was so good, Mary. Thank you for that. What a nugget.
you're exercising restraint. And what's emerging for you is receptivity to
Mm,
things that need to come into your life for you to become who you're becoming right now.
mm,
And you know what else? That's how you also interrupt your patterns and your behaviors.
mhm.
It's not by doing them in the same way again, right? It's not by having the same response
Right.
to the stimulus. It's about restraint. It's about awareness.
Mhm.
It's about pausing. It's about reflecting and gathering data. That is literally what you're doing. So you're well on your journey.
What a journey. I love this season. I am so in love with it. I'm taking notes like a madman. What you said earlier, I really love, where it was, you know, a pattern opposed is a pattern learned, a pattern repeated, right? Is like you continue the same path. And that's so true to this, pausing, taking in, being reflective, observing, all the things that you mentioned, to really be self-aware rather than just delving into it deeper and deeper and deeper. Oh, Mary, I would skip all my meetings all day to talk to you. I've loved this conversation. Your energy, the human being that you are, just how receptive you are, the listener that you are, the question asker that you are, the insights, the nuggets that you drop. I can tell there's a wealth of knowledge there. And I'm so grateful that you even have this conversation with me. I feel very honored. Yeah, very humbled. Thank you. Just
I
thank
feel the same way, Reef. I mean, this was supposed to be like a quick intro meeting for us to chat and get to know each other before we do our podcast. And little did we both know that it would turn into the podcast,
you.
which is beautiful because I agree. Like we've captured so many lessons and learnings and teachings and insights that I think we need to share with other people. And it's
Mm.
not every day that you meet someone with along the same resonance as you and you're able to really open and share freely and vulnerably from a place of love, gratitude, and appreciation for the other human that's right in front of you. And that's in that. And when you can have that, it's magic. It's a magical moment.
I I think energetically, when it happens, it happens. This is one of those things that happened, right? A 30-minute conversation turned into this. Energetically, it was supposed to happen the way it happened. I do have to be in radical personal responsibility and share that this was not Reef of 3 or 4 months ago. You know, 3 or 4 months ago, Reef would have ran the conversation. I would not have stopped talking. There would have been a lot of one-sidedness. This is a very conscious, elevated Reef. People keep saying Reef 3.0, which is fast. I keep laughing. Some people say 2.0, some people say 6.0 because they've known me through so many seasons. But it really, it really is a level of self-awareness that I've stepped into to be very conscious of how I interact with people. How are we leaving each other through a conversation? Energetically, like reading the room, I saw 30 minutes on our calendar, and just the way the conversation was flowing, I was like, there's no way this is a 30-minute call. Something special here. And prior me would have just cut us off and said, hey, I got the next meeting. Sorry, I gotta go. I apologize, but we gotta do this thing. Now,
Yeah.
rather, what, Kate, push the meetings. There's something special happening here, and this is worth exploring. Why not let that other thing go by the wayside? Not by the wayside, because I know that other person's, a wonderful human too, but I think this energetically had some strength to it.
Oh,
So
I
yeah, but
agree.
yeah,
Yeah. And
sorry.
sometimes beautiful things happen when they're unexpected, right? Like when you leave space for things to land, things come in, but we need to create that space. We need to create that container for things to come in.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, thank you, Reef. This was such a great conversation. And hopefully we can stay connected as well. You're I
We
think
will. The internet's chopping up a little bit here.
that's okay.
But what you said was perfect. I heard all of it. Just to reiterate, that we stay connected, and that when things are energetically aligned, they're energetically aligned, right? And I think yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, Reef, thank you so much. This was amazing. And maybe we can share it to maybe both of our audiences so that everybody can benefit and get to know you. And maybe Reef, if you can just let us know, like, where's the best place where people can also go to follow you
Yeah, that's
and meet.
wonderful. I'm going to give this a quick here because it's lagging. Let's give it 2 seconds here.
Yeah,
Go ahead and get this. Oh, there you go. Can you move real quick for me, Mary? A little bit. Can you see me smoothly? Yeah, I see you
yeah,
smoothly. Okay, good. I think we're back. Um, yeah, for me, Reef Coleman is my handle for everything. REEF, like the coral reef, and then Colman, COLMAN. No E in Coleman, like the camping gear, but without the E. At Reef Coleman is pretty much every handle that I have across social media. Very open person to having conversations. If it's if you want to sit down for anything that's longer than an hour or 20 minutes or 30 minutes, Kate is the person to reach out to. Hello at weassist.io. Um, she handles my calendar and she's absolutely amazing. But I love talking with people, and I hope to help families and people stay together.
Mhm. Yeah.
Are the conscious masculine, teaching other men that have sadly in this society kind of been bastardized, male, female, only in one household. So you're only learning from two broken systems. And then on top of that, one maybe leaves, and then you get another broken system into the household. And it's a really tumultuous thing because we don't know how to stay together. 1950s, you had a lawnmower, you pass it on to your father, to your grandparents, to your kids. Now we go to Walmart and buy another $40 lawnmower, that's electric and plastic. We just have learned to dispose things. We haven't learned to cherish and keep and hold the things that we love and really work on them to make them work. So that's a big
Yeah.
one for me. And I also believe that tribalism, when we were a species of a long time ago, we used to raise our kids. I see these community groups raising their kids with each other, like families, not necessarily in the same household, but families that stay together and they all grow and go to barbecues and do things together. And these kids learning from different parental units. And I think we've lost that as a society. We're so isolated and siloed. We're in our computers, we're in our phones, we're in our boxes, our caves in the sky, and we do not exit those things to go. Like I came here at this every Airbnb I go to, I come see my neighbors, and people think I'm wild, because they're like, "What are you doing?" That's such an odd thing. I'm like, "No, I want to know the people that are around me, because when I have my home, I'll do the same thing." But it's so foreign. What happened to us making some brownies and walking across the street, being like, "Hey, I'm the new neighbor," So conscious,
Connection.
the connection, true connection. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, Mary.
Not virtual connection. We've become such a disconnected society. Exactly. Yeah, we're so into our phones and into our apps and, into our virtual reality that we've lost the essence of like what it means to be in the energetic presence of another human.
That's the part. You just
Yeah.
said it. Because we're more connected than we ever have been as a species, but also more disconnected than we ever have been as a species. It's an incredible dichotomy of our time, like such a weird juxtaposition where you're like, wow, I can FaceTime you in Japan right now, but also I don't feel you, I don't sense you, which is what you just said energetically. I couldn't agree more. So I think that conscious masculinity is something that I really hope to work on. But to your point, that connection thing is the feminine and masculine together. No more content about opposing each other or trying to become these Instagram therapists of, you know what, girl, you're right. I saw all this, he's all these things, like, or like guys
Yeah.
being like, yeah, yeah, go, you deserve better. Go get these other guys, or men being like, bro, I deserve to be treated a certain way, like this is crazy that she doesn't treat me this way. Like, what? I deserve, there's 20 women out there, that I really hope to fight the social norm of stepping into a space of you are a woman, I am a man. We need to learn to work together as a unit and help other people learn to work together as a unit. And that starts with a good foundation of how did we even set this up? Did we just go on a date and then hit it off and we're like sick? Did we do the front work? Did we hang out a little bit and then get to know each other well? Did we get to know each other's friend circles? Did we then also initiate in what is sharing our intimacies of what we want for future and landscape? And then did we say, hey, you know what? This makes sense energetically, emotionally, spiritually, fiscally, physically, mentally. We have a lot of data points here that point towards alignment. You know what? We should maybe try this. What are your thoughts on that? You know what? Yeah, I like that. And then going down that path and now saying, well, it's a lot harder to separate two things that have been so interwoven for, a couple of months. Whereas if you just have a connection point and you're like this, very easy for someone to say, that guy's an idiot. Okay. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
traveling and going deep into self and relationships, not seeing the other person as the enemy, but rather looking introspectively into self and saying, I, me, have work to do on self, and I get to work on self in ways that other people aren't willing to. And I'm willing to hold your hand as you venture into the darkest depths of your heart and being and self, because I love you and I care about you and I care enough about you to walk that dark path with you and understand and learn and be curious just as you're curious, because you are probably just as aware that you don't like those areas of yourself as much as I don't like my areas of myself. So instead of me standing in a judgmental position and saying, how dare you be that broken person, I get to stand with you and go, you probably don't like that within yourself because I do these 5 things over here that I don't like about myself. And instead of each other judging one another, we can go, hey, you know what? I see you for your character and the human that you are. And I love you past those behaviors and past those patterns because I know the true core of your essence. Let's navigate that and get closer to your truth, closer to your essence, closer to your character. And let's both sit in the ugly of combating whatever those things are that rob us from that true expression of self.
And that requires me to have an unconditional positive regard for you and for you to have unconditional positive regard for me. Because no matter what's showing up, the good, the bad, the ugly, I can still pierce through that human and look
Mm.
into their soul and say, you were born good.
Mm.
You were born perfect. Can I look and see the good and the perfection of that human that's in front of me, despite all the layers that they're showing me, right? Despite the trauma, despite the dissatisfaction, despite the anger, despite all of that, can I still pierce right through, right to your soul and say, I still continue to choose to hold you and with an unconditional positive regard for who you are in your being, who you are in your essence, who you are in your soul? Can I see that as something that's untainted, as something that's perfect and whole in itself? And then can I help you see it too? Can I help you remove those layers? Can I help you and hold your hand in your journey into yourself? And can you do that for me? And if we can do that, then we do create that strong foundation. And as we grow and change and our version 2.0 and 6.0 and 10.0 comes forward, we're actually converging and we're growing together and we're not separating and growing apart. But I
Mm.
think that that's a conscious choice that you have to make for yourself and for the person that you're bringing along your path and your journey.
That was so beautiful that it made me tear up. That was, there's such a beauty to seeing another human being for being a human being and not putting any preconceived self mirrored out projections, but just seeing them for the beautiful human being that they are, the way you see you, right? When they say how you view someone else truly is a reflection of you, I now get it. I'm like, wow, I'll
Mm-hmm.
never worry about another human again. I'll only share like, hey, you're in, even when we talked about the, spiritual, F boys or the, woo woo women, view their hurts.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure it out like anybody else. And that creates such, you said that was so beautiful. That right there needs to be your like 90-second reel. That was so good. That was just so powerful. It was, I think we have so much to crop out of this. It's out of control. But what you said there is just choosing to see the other person without any malice, and that they are a perfect human, born wanting to continue being in great relationship, and that they're on the other side wanting love just as much as you want love. It's not like they want any less love. We're just both trying to articulate the same language, in different, from different backgrounds, that is, what you said was so good, Mary. That is honey on my heart. Like that is sweet honey on my soul. That is so good on warm bread, warm, yummy, freshly risen bread with honey. Perfect. A
Well,
little bit of ghee, just a little bit of ghee. Yeah.
yeah. And if we can go through life really seeing that in our children and our parents and our relationships, in our colleagues, in our partners, if we can go through like life is just better when you look through those lenses and
Oof.
you can see past all the ugly, right? Past all of that. Because what it also creates is it allows you to also lower your guard where
Mhm.
you are not triggered, right?
Defense.
It allows, yeah. And sometimes we get triggered because it triggers our insecurities. Certain insecurities get triggered, and then we start putting up a guard, and then we start creating issues because it creates a divide. And it's like, for me, in all of humanity, if we can just look at our sameness and our likeness rather
Yeah.
than look at our differences,
Oh man.
I just think that like that's how we create connection with people we know and even with people we don't know. Like there'll be
Pete.
people listening to this interview that don't know you and don't know me, but I
Mm,
can guarantee you that some of them will feel a connection. They'll feel connected to the words. You know, it'll have applicability in their life. It'll allow them to create some self-reflection. It'll trigger certain things in them, good and bad.
mm.
But I think if we can take this journey, and it's a journey, right? Take the journey, take the good, the bad, and the ugly, take it all in, but ultimately try to see each human being as a perfect soul,
Yeah.
as a perfect spirit that's come into this world to do important work. And they're trying to figure it out. Somebody said
Yeah.
to me something last week, and I think maybe it was Buddha. It's like we're all just trying to walk each other home. And that's so
Mm.
beautiful. We're all just trying to walk each other home. Like that really struck me like, wow, that's actually how I feel. That's
It's
actually how I
it's so fair and true because I can hear in my past relationship, I was trying to save you and they were trying to save me. And I think there's a lot of relationships out there that have a very similar sentiment that I hear often where they say, I was trying to save the other person. Then you talk to the other person, like, I was trying to save them, you know? And I'm seeing this correlation so much in relationships where one person feels like they're doing the other a favor and the other one's doing the other one a favor, instead of both having the honest conversation of, this is what I see. We should probably help ourselves,
Mhm.
not, not the other person. Maybe we should, thank you for the data. What should I do here? I have a concept that I want to run by you because I really appreciate your heart and mind. And this
Yeah,
idea has sat with me, and uh, I want to hear kind of your opinion on it. Is that okay? Can I share it?
yeah, for sure.
So I've been on a journey of peace, and what's internal peace, and what's come to me is I think that world peace is when we, and this is all to what you just said a moment ago, right? And that's why I'm bringing that up. World peace comes from no longer finding the division and the differences in others, but us fighting ourselves, to no longer bear arms against the person in front of us or the human in front of us, but rather to bear arms into our own self. The further we start to bear arms into the depths of our hearts, our patterns, our conditions, the more empathy we'll have for the people around us, and the more tools we'll have to be able to help other people around us as they're navigating themselves. I think that's the vision of world peace that we all should be seeking towards or for. No longer pointing the finger, no longer combating the other person, no longer fighting them because of difference, race, opinion, religion, whoever, whatever, but rather into self. Who am I? What am I? Why do I believe this? Why do I want this? Why do I like this? Like, what does harmony look like? What does peace look like? And I think the war of the future will be fought internally, introspectively, because we'll have everything else taken care of. AI will have our food, robotics will have our cooking, everything else will be done. The only thing left will be us fighting ourselves so that then we can make the future generations understand peace and harmony and goodness, working with planet Earth, learning from the trees, learning from, like, the trees have been all around way longer than us. They figured it out. They're very, structured, sturdy, rooted, grounded beings that have been around way further and longer than us. What can we learn about nature to coexist with it, to work with water, work with our oceans, work with space, be a zero footprint, species? I think that will be the war of the future self. And that's what world peace, I think, looks like. Yeah.
Agree. Agree. And it's like it goes to that quote that says like if you want to change the world, start with changing yourself. Because it all goes back to self.
That was
Why?
so.
Because the window is always the mirror. That's
Mm.
why. So if you want to start looking out for a different view and a different window, you
Yeah,
want to
yeah, I
see
get.
you want to see a new landscape, start reflecting in the mirror.
Oh my
And I
God.
you'll start seeing a new landscape, a better landscape, a more hopeful landscape, a more peaceful landscape,
Love that.
right?
You brought that around
Because
full circle. You brought that
that
around.
always
Well,
that was unplanned. It is unplanned. But
that was good. Energetically perfect to bring that back from. I think that was like the second or third quote you had when we started talking to bring it back to here. Awesome. That was so good.
and I
Oh,
could and I couldn't have planned it. I couldn't have planned it. it happened because it was meant to happen.
Correct. I agree.
Right.
I, I'm with,
And we have to believe in that.
yeah.
Everything, like I truly believe nothing is by coincidence and everything happens for a reason. And
Oh,
it's up
I,
to us, like figure out why it happened. And like we need to figure out why, right?
yeah,
We have to be introspective. We have to be curious. We have to care. We have to care, right?
yeah,
And if we can do that, then we show up as different humans in this world. And if everybody can do that, then the world will change.
agreed. I could not agree with you more. And yeah, I don't, I think the conversation is going so well. I feel like we should have an end point at some point, but you said something there that was so good, about things having to happen. An epiphany that came to me here in this season, that I was, you hold on to things in your heart and you're like, man, why did this all happen? Why did this all happen? Why did this all happen? Now that I've ventured as deep as I've gone and entered this as I've gone with the practitioner that I've gone, busy gold, all this, right? I
Yeah.
recognize that this had to happen.
Right.
I did not have the foresight or insight or mental capability. Like, I have to be very clear here. This person, this other person, wonderful human being, great heart, great mind, etc. Right? Even if they were to articulate to me, Reef, I love you, but we need to work on things. My mind was in such a space and I had such a rubric and framework that I would not have been receptive. The only way for me to actually be the man that I've become now, man, again, I feel like crying. Holy cannoli. The only way for me to become the man that I am right now is I had to go through that experience and learn it with the people that could actually, you can't fix something if you can't see the instance. And these people that have been working with me diligently, Busy Gold and her team, got to see me at my worst breaking zones and seeing how I react to these things and how I show up to these things. That has been one of the strongest reflections and one of the strongest healings, where if I wouldn't have gone through this season, I would not have gotten that. And I have to be so grateful for things happening the way they did, regardless of the pain, the hurt, the everything, the lash out. And that's where the empathy really comes in, because that was where the true healing was on the other side of. And it would not have happened if it hadn't gone the way it did. And that is so hard to swallow, Mary. It's like, talk about a pill that is just a horse capsule. Um,
Yeah. But also, if you reflect that to like everything is always happening for my highest good, right? And even like that's also where you discover who you are, not when life is peachy, when life is painful and dark and hurtful, right? And it's like, how are you going to respond to that? How are you going to grow from that? And who are you going to become as a result of that? I think that that's where the beauty is, right? Like the reef right now today would not be the reef right now today if you hadn't gone through what you've gone through, your last relationship, the previous ones, right? Like life will keep teaching you until you learn.
That's a quote that has really resonated with me right there. Yeah, because this is, I think previous to this situation, what I had, Mary, and I have to be, again, I'm being very vulnerable because I think people to understand that how tricky the brain can be. Every relationship up until this last one, I had a script of, it's the other person. I believe my friends, my friends were like, oh, it's them. You're fine. You got to find this type of girl, forget that, forget that, forget that. So many times that at the third relationship or the fourth one is when I was like, something's up here. I got to really dig into this. But so many times that same iteration, of like, it's that other person, it's that other person, it's that other person, that finally in this one, there's so much respect for that other human. When you meet somebody that there's a bunch of respect for, and you respect their mind, their brain, the human that they are, and like just the impact that you both had on each other, those are the relationships that can shift you. Those are the relationships that either become a glorious story together and you like prevail through all things, or they're the best learning lesson you'll ever have that really share the most light on your reality and humanity, right? Like that's my understanding is that of these like soul bonds or soul connections that the universe gives you. um but in being fully transparent, this lesson had come before, and the universe kept, in the one season where I said this time it won't happen, This time it's for marriage. This time it's for life. This time it's for all these things, color with the rainbow, all of these things. I could not hold back. Even though I thought I was healed, it was still the same pattern, the anxious, the not being scared, the thoughts. 6 months prior to us even splitting, my mind was just in a place of, this person wants to leave. It's over. They hate me. Like these perpetuating thoughts that have taken me and robbed me of many relationships slip back in. Now things are busy gold. I understand the pattern and I can pattern oppose, but previously, if you would have told me, Reef, that's what's breaking the relationship 6 months ago, I wouldn't have, it was so real. I remember hearing, it feels so real in the moment right now that I didn't get it. I was like, what do you mean it feels real? Now I get it. In the moment, it feels real. The thought of this person is doing this, or this person is doing that, or they're thinking maliciously, or whatever, they're so real that they corrupt our relationships, our thoughts, the future. They collapse it before it even happens. It's self-perpetuating. It's creating this self-fulfilling prophecy of sabotage. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, this lesson has been shown to me, and I just didn't know where it came from. And for the first time, I can see where the patterns are, and I feel like I'm dissecting it. And it is such a powerful, beautiful, neat thing. Um, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that person's insights, the way that this all came about. Like I've learned to have so much empathy, love, curiosity, and care that I choose a path of thank you rather than, easy to come on this with you and be like, well, they were this, and that, like you don't even know. You should see the things that I had to endure, like everyone has their list. I have my list of hurts that still haven't been, there's no closure to, but bringing that to the light is, what good is that? That does nothing. Instead, rather like, hey, here's what I'm learning and what I'm taking away. And this is the brilliance and the beauty. I choose gratitude. I choose positivity. I choose the light. Thank you for those gifts, so the lessons have come, like you said, the universe is teaching it over and over again. And this is that time that I finally feel like I've seen it, I get it, and it will not repeat. And I'm
Mhm.
so excited for my future. Like I am elated. I'm like, what? I can't wait. I can't wait to test these things out in practicality, and disciplines. And I can't wait to have a moment where, my girlfriend or future wife is standing in front of me and they're falling apart before my eyes. And I can just hold space for them and be like, hey, you're okay. I'm here for you. Let me hold you. Hey, can I ask you a question? What do you need right now? Rather than, the practices that I've had before, of like, get over it, we're fine. Your emotions are your thoughts, just reframe it, be positive. No, it's like, hey, let's sit with this for a moment. What are you experiencing? What is that? I totally get that with you. Yeah, I understand that. Do we need a moment? Should we just chill here and relax? Or should we try to work through this a little bit? Okay, cool. Let's just chill here and relax. Or yeah, you know what? Let's try to work through it a little bit. Let's get on the other side. You need space, no space. I'm excited to feel these things and experience them with someone and test them. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and just like acceptance of the isness, like this is what it is. I'm not trying to fix it. I'm not trying to change it. I'm not trying to manipulate it. I'm not trying to manipulate you, your thoughts, your feelings. I'm not dismissing, right? It's just full and total acceptance of that other
Oh,
human, you know? And that's a relief, right? When you feel like you don't have to go in there and
yes.
fix one, that's actually a relief for you, to just be there and let them tell you what it is that they need. And they may need nothing, right? I gotta be left alone. Whatever it is that they need, it's like honoring their needs and knowing that you don't know what's best for them.
Right.
They know what's best for them. If they choose to seek the answers, they will find them. But you
I
gotta let
did
them do.
I didn't realize how much pressure I put on myself, Mary, on, wanting to fix things and not just letting it be and surrendering. I actually was creating my own anxiety and I had no idea, in my thinking, I was like, I'm a protector. I'm like, I'm here. I'm like a male. This is what I think it should be, Twilight, and Edward Cullen. I have to sparkle in the sun for God's sakes, But I didn't realize how much I was putting on myself, that pressure, of having to be this type of human and curating that rather than just saying, okay, this is the isness, right? Surrendering and okay, what do we need here in this moment? Not what do I need to fix? Not how do I need to show up? Not how do I need to manipulate this? You know, I've been so used to living in safety of control, manipulating my surroundings so that I felt safe, that I was then trying to teach other people that same coping mechanism. And so then they were like, this doesn't work for me. I was like,
Yeah.
well, I guess you're right, because I've trained it in 30 years. I understand how it works for me. But if you have two people trying to manipulate a situation for coping, you're gonna have mismatched problems because you both can't control the same thing. Try to have two people fly the same plane, or try two people drive the same car. Good luck. That's gonna be
Disaster.
a horrible disaster.
Yeah, and sometimes all we need to do is the simplest thing possible, which is presence. Just be present with that person, you know? They will reveal to you what it is that they need, but you got to give them the space to do it,
Learning
right?
that, one of the biggest lessons of this season. One of the
Yeah.
biggest lessons, Mary. One of the I've had so many. I have a journal of lessons of this like season, and this is one of them, of just the presence of being and space and the power of that. Yeah.
Presence, restraint,
Mm,
receptivity.
mm,
Things will come into the awareness, your awareness, if you're present and you're holding back to allow things to come in. And that's one
mm,
of our hardest lessons. Even me, you know, we all struggle with it, but it's about building that muscle and starting to change our habits slowly and changing our behavioral patterns slowly, right? It's
mm.
about recognizing, it's about the awareness when we're not doing it and when we
Yeah.
should be doing it. And what
Mm,
happens when we don't do that? Oh,
mm,
okay, this. Oh, and it's happened the last 3 times. Okay, now I'm seeing a trend line. Now I need to do something about it, right?
yeah.
Like we're not going to recognize the trends if we're not if we're not actually looking out for them, right? If we're
Sure.
not collecting the trends. So like I love what you said at the beginning, which is like everything is data. And it is. Everything is data. We can
Yeah.
choose to discard the data, we can choose to manipulate the data, or we
Mm,
can choose to make informed choices with the data.
I will say.
And it's up to us as we decide what we do with the data, or
Yeah.
if we choose to collect it in the first place,
Mm,
right? Yeah,
mm.
Reef, this has been great. I feel like there needs to be a part 2 at some point. This was wonderful. Thank
I
you.
agree with you. I think this might have been our part one. And the next one we'll do the actual, well, Kate, you actually schedule the actual podcast, and this will be our part two. And I went to the gym, I worked out, I'm over like a wreck. I'm in like a workout shirt. You look wonderful, but I feel like I showed up to here like frimpalicious. But I will show up better manicured and cater to the podcast next time. So this will be our part one, and I'm excited to do part two with you. Yeah.
You show up how you authentically want to show up, right? We show up for ourselves. We don't show up for anybody else. And we always feel the pressure to show up manicured and like case in point, right? But at the end of the day, it's like if you can just show up for you, you'll show up for everybody else.
I showed up for the gym right now, Mary. I showed up for, I showed up for the gymnasium.
Ready to
This is,
roll.
this is, like yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
next podcast, I'll show up like I'm going to the gym and then you show up in a suit. And then we'll level it off.
I love that. That'd be good. No, you keep doing the thing that you do. You're wonderful. I'll just put a shirt on next time, and then brush the hair and shower would be nice. Just the simple things. I'm not asking for too much. I'm just asking for a shirt, a shower, and hair. Reef, you could do better. No, I'm excited for this, Mary. I'm so thankful for your time. I'm gonna have Kate send this all over to you, and then yeah,
For
let's go
sure.
ahead and that time to chat.
Can't wait to get this out. I appreciate you. Okay, enjoy the rest of the week and till next time.